earth, with her mountains and seas and trees began to tremble, and all creatures, heated with the energy of the weapons, were greatly afflicted. The firmament, O king, became ablaze and the 10 points of the horizon became filled with smoke. Creatures, therefore, that ranged the welkin were unable to stay in their element. When, at all this, the whole world with the gods, the Asuras and the Rakshasas began to utter exclamations of woe. This is the time, thought I, and became desirous, O Bharata, of speedily shooting the Praswapa weapon at the command of those utterers of Brahma that had appeared to me in my dream. The mantras also for invoking excellent weapons suddenly came to my mind. Section VI. Bhishma said, when I had formed this resolution, O king, a din of tumultuous voices arose in the sky. And it said, O son of Kuru's race, do not let off the Praswapa weapon! Notwithstanding this, I still aimed that weapon at Bhrigu's descendant. When I had aimed it, Narada addressed me, saying, Yonder, O Kauravya, stay the gods in the sky. Even they are forbidding thee today. Do not aim the Praswapa weapon. Rama is an ascetic possessed of Brahma merit, and he is, again, thy preceptor. Never, Kauravya, humiliate him. While Narada was telling me this, I beheld those 8 Tetras of Brahma stationed in the sky. Smilingly, O king, they said unto me slowly, O chief of the Bharatas, do even what Narada saith. Even that, O best of Bharata's race, is highly beneficial to the world. I then withdrew that great weapon called Praswapa and invoked according to the ordinance the weapon called Brahma in the combat. Beholding the Praswapa weapon withdrawn, O lion among kings, Rama was in great huff, and suddenly exclaimed, Wretch that I am vanquished, O Bhishma. Then Jamadani's son beheld before him his venerable father and his father's fathers. They stood surrounding him there, and addressed him in these words of consolation, O sire, never display such rashness again, the rashness, viz., of engaging in battle with Bhishma, or especially with any Kshatriyu. O descendant of Bhrigu's race, to fight is the duty of a Kshatriyu. Study of the Vedas and practice of vows are the highest 12 of Brahmanas. For some reason, before this, thou hadst been ordered by us to take up weapons. Thou hadst then perpetrated the terrible and unbecoming feat. Let this battle with Bhishma be thy very last, for enough of it thou hadst already. O thou of mighty arms, leave the combat. Blessed be thou, let this be the very last instance of thy taking up the bow. O invincible one, throw thy bow aside, and practice ascetic austerities, O thou of Bhrigu's race. Behold, Bhishma, the son of Santanu, is forbidden by all the gods. They are endeavoring to pacify him, repeatedly saying, Desist from this battle. Do not fight with Rama who is thy preceptor. It is not proper for thee, O perpetuator of Kuru's race, to vanquish Rama in battle. O son of Ganga, show this Brahmana every honor on the field of battle. As regards thee, we are thy superiors and therefore forbid thee. Bhishma is one of the foremost of Vasas. O son, it is fortunate that thou art still alive. Santanu's son by Ganga, a celebrated Vasu as he is, how can he be defeated by thee? Desist, therefore, O Bhargava. That foremost of the Pandavas, Arjuna, the mighty son of Indra, hath been ordained by the self-create to be the slayer of Bhishma. Bhishma continued, thus addressed by his own ancestors. Rama answered them, saying, I cannot give up the combat. Even this is the solemn vow I have made. Before this, I never left the field, giving up battle. Ye grandsires, if you please, cause Ganga's son to desist from the fight. As regards myself, I can, by no means, desist from the combat. Hearing these words of his, O king, those ascetics with Richika at the head, coming to me with Narada in their company, told me, "O sire, desist from battle. Honor that foremost of Brahmanas. For the sake of Kshatriya morality," I replied unto them, saying, "Even this is the vow I have taken in this world, viz., that I would never desist from battle turning my back, or suffer my back to be wounded with arrows. I cannot, from temptation or distress, or fear, or for the sake of wealth, abandon my eternal duty. Even this is my fixed resolution." Then all those ascetics with Narada at their head, O king, and my mother Bhagirati, occupied the field of battle before me. I, however, stayed quietly with arrows and bow as before, resolved to fight. They then once more turned towards Rama and addressed him, saying, "The hearts of Brahmanas are made of butter. Be pacified, therefore, O son of Bhrigu's race. O Rama, desist from this battle, O best of Brahmanas. Bhishma is incapable of being slain by thee, as indeed thou, O Bhargava, art incapable of being slain by him." Saying these words while they stood obstructing the field, the Baitrus caused that descendant of Bhrigu's race to place aside his weapons. Just at this time I once more beheld those 8 tetras of Brahma, blazing with effulgence and resembling bright stars risen on the firmament. Stationed for battle as I was, they said these words unto me with great affection, "O thou of mighty arms, go unto Rama who is thy preceptor. Do what is beneficial to all the worlds." Beholding then that Rama had desisted owing to the words of his well-wishers, I also, for the good of the worlds, accepted the words of my well-wishers. Though mangled exceedingly, I still approached Rama and worshipped him. The great ascetic Rama then, smilingly, and with great affection, said unto me, "There is no Kshatriya equal to thee on the earth. Go now, O Bhishma, for in this combat thou hast pleased me highly." Summoning then in my presence that maiden, the daughter of Kusi, Bhargava sorrowfully said unto her these words in the midst of all those high-souled persons. Section 6. Rama said, "O damsel, in the very sight of all these persons, I have fought according to the best of my power and displayed my prowess. By using even the very best of weapons I have not been able to obtain any advantage over Bhishma, that foremost of all wielders of weapons. I have exerted now to the best of my power and might. O beautiful lady, go whithersoever thou wishest. What other business of thine can I accomplish? Seek the protection of Bhishma himself. Thou hast no other refuge now. Shooting mighty weapons Bhishma hath vanquished me." Having said this, the high-souled Rama sighed and remained silent. That maiden then addressed him, saying, "O Holy One, it is even so as thy holy self hath said. This Bhishma of great intelligence is incapable of being vanquished in battle by even the gods. Thou hast done my business to the best of thy exertion and power. Thou hast displayed in this battle energy incapable of being baffled and weapons also of diverse kinds. Thou hast yet been unable to obtain any advantage over Bhishma in combat. As regards myself, I will not go a second time to Bhishma. I will, however, O perpetuator of Bhrigu's race, go there, O thou endued with wealth of asceticism, where I may obtain the means to myself slay Bhishma in battle." Having said the words, that maiden went away, with eyes agitated with wrath, and thinking to compass my death, she firmly resolved to devote herself to asceticism. Then that foremost one of Bhrigu's race, accompanied by those ascetics, bidding me farewell, departed, O Bharata, for the mountains whence he had come. I also, ascending my car, and praised by the Brahmanas, entered our city and represented everything unto my mother Satyavati, everything that had transpired, and she, O great king, uttered benedictions on me. I then appointed persons endued with intelligence to ascertain the doings of that maiden. Devoted to the good of myself, their well-wisher, Those spies of mine, with great application, brought to me accounts of her course of action, her words and actions, from day to day. When that maiden went to the woods, resolved on ascetic austerities, even then I became melancholy, and afflicted with pain. I lost my heart's tenor, except when acquainted with Brahma and observant of vows that are praiseworthy owing to the austerities they involve. No Kshatriya hath ever by his prowess vanquished me in battle. I then, O king, humbly represented to Narada as also to Vyasa all that the maiden did. They both told me, O Bhishma, do not give way to sorrow on account of the daughter of Kusi. Who is there that would venture to baffle destiny by individual exertion? Meanwhile, O great king, that maiden, entering a cluster of retreats, practiced austerities that were beyond human powers of endurance. Without food, emaciated, dry, with matted locks and begrimed with filth, for 6 months she lived on air only, and stood and moved like a street post. And that lady, possessed of wealth of asceticism, foregoing all food in consequence of the fast she kept, passed a whole year after this, standing in the waters of the Yamuna. Endued with great wrath, she passed the next whole year standing on her front toes and having eaten only one fallen leaf of a tree. And thus for 12 years she made the heavens hot by her austerities. And though dissuaded by her relatives, she could not by any means be weaned off from that course of action. She then went unto Vatsabhumi resorted to by the Siddhas and Charanas, and which was the retreat of high-souled ascetics of pious deeds. Bathing frequently in the sacred waters of that retreat, the princess of Kusi roamed about according to her will, proceeding next, one after another, to the asylum, O king, of Narada, and to the auspicious asylum of Aluka, and to that of Kayavana, and to the spot sacred to Brahmana, and to Prayaga, the sacrificial platform of the gods, and to that forest sacred to the gods, and to Bhagavati, and, O monarch, to the asylum of Kusika's son, Viswamitra, and to the asylum of Mandavya, and also to the asylum of Adwilipa, and to Ramhuda, and, O Kaurava, to the asylum of Garga, the princess of Kusi, O king, performed ablutions in the sacred waters of all these, observing all the while the most difficult of vows. One day, my mother from the waters asked her, O Kauravya, saying, O blessed lady, for what dost thou afflict thyself so? Tell me the truth. Thus asked, O monarch, that faultless damsel answered her with joined hands, saying, O thou of handsome eyes, Rama hath been vanquished in battle by Bhishma. What other Kshatriya king then would venture to defeat the latter when ready with his weapons? As regards myself, I am practicing the severest penances for the destruction of Bhishma. I wander over the earth, O goddess, so that I may slay that king. In everything I do, O goddess, even this is the great end of my vows. Hearing these words of hers, the ocean-going, river Ganga, replied unto her, saying, O lady, thou art acting crookedly. O weak girl, this wish of thine thou shalt not be able to achieve, O faultless one. If, O princess of Kusi, thou observest these vows for destruction of Bhishma, and if thou takest leave of thy body while observing them, thou shalt, in thy next birth, become a river, crooked in her course and of water only during the rains. All the bathing places along thy course will be difficult of approach, and filled only during the rains. Thou shalt be dry for 8 months, during the year. Full of terrible alligators, and creatures of frightful mien thou shalt inspire fear in all creatures. Addressing her thus, O king, my mother, that highly blessed lady, in seeming smiles, dismissed the princess of Kusi. That highly fair damsel then once more began to practice vows, foregoing all food, aye, even water, sometimes for 8 months and sometimes for 10 months. And the daughter of the king of Kusi, wandering hither and thither, for her passionate desire of Tirthas once more came back, O Kauravya, to Vatsabhumi. And it is there, O Bharata, that she is known to have become a river, filled only during the rainy seasons, abounding with crocodiles, crooked in her course, and destitute of easy access to her water. And, O king, in consequence of her ascetic merit only half her body became such a river in Vatsabhumi, while with the other half, she remained a maiden as before. Section CXC. Bhishma said, then all those ascetics that dwell in Vatsabhumi, beholding the princess of Kazi firmly resolved on ascetic austerities, dissuaded her and inquired of her, saying, what is thy business? Thus addressed, the maiden answered those ascetics, old in ascetic penances, saying, expelled I have been by Bhishma, prevented by him from the virtue that would have been mine by living with a husband. My observance of this vow is for his destruction and not for the sake of regions of bliss, ye that are endued with wealth of asceticism. Having compassed the death of Bhishma, peace will be mine. Even this is my resolve. He for whom mine hath been this state of continuous grief, he for whom I have been deprived of the region that would have been mine if I could obtain a husband, he for whom I have become neither woman nor man, without slaying in battle that son of Ganga I will not desist, ye that are endued with wealth of asceticism. Even this that I have said is the purpose that is in my heart. As a woman, I have no longer any desire. I am, however, resolved to obtain manhood, for I will be revenged upon Bhishma. I should not, therefore, be dissuaded by you. And to them she said these words repeatedly. Soon, the divine lord of bearing the trident, showed himself in his own form unto that female ascetic in the midst of those great rishis. Being asked to solicit the boon she wished, she begged of the deity my defeat. Thou shalt slay him, were the words the god said unto that lady of great force of mind. Thus assured, the maiden, however, once more said unto Rudra, how can it happen, O god, that being a woman I shall yet be able to achieve victory in battle? O Lord of as a woman, my heart is quite stilled. Thou hast, however, promised me, O Lord of creatures, the defeat of Bhishma. O Lord, having the bull for thy mount, act in such a way that promise of thine may become true, that encountering Bhishma, the son of Santanu, in battle I may be able to slay him. The god of gods, having the bull for his symbol, then said unto that maiden, the words I have uttered cannot be false. O blessed lady, true they will be. Thou shalt slay Bhishma, and even obtain manhood. Thou shalt also remember all the incidents of this life, even when thou shalt obtain a new body. Born in the race of Drupada, thou shalt become a Mahabharata. Quick in the use of weapons and a fierce warrior, thou shalt be well skilled in battle. O blessed lady, all that I have said will be true. Thou shalt become a man at the expiration of some time from thy birth. Having said so, the god of gods, called also Kapardin, having the bull for his symbol, disappeared then and there, in the very sight of those Brahmanas. Upon this, that faultless maiden of the fairest complexion, the eldest daughter of the king of Kazi, procuring wood from that forest in the very sight of those great rishis, made a large funeral pyre on the banks of the Yamuna, and having set fire to it herself, entered that blazing fire, O great king, with a heart burning with wrath, and uttering, O king, the words, I do so, for Bhishma's destruction. Section CXCI. Duryodhana said, tell me, O grandsire, how Sikandin, O Ganga's son, having before been born a daughter, afterwards became a man, O foremost of warriors. Bhishma said, O great king, the eldest and beloved queen of King Drupada was, O monarch, childless, at first. During those years, King Drupada, O monarch, paid his adoration to the god Sankara for the sake of offspring, resolving in his mind to compass my destruction and practicing the austerest of penances. And he begged Mahadeva, saying, "Let a son, and not a daughter, be born unto me. I desire, O God, a son for avenging myself upon Bhishma." Thereupon, that god of gods said unto him, "Thou shalt have a child who will be a female and male. Desist, O king, it will not be otherwise." Returning then to his capital, he addressed his wife, saying, "O great goddess, great hath been the exertion made by me. Undergoing ascetic austerities, I paid my adorations to Shiva, and I was told by Sambhu that my child becoming a daughter, first, would subsequently become a male person. And though I solicited him repeatedly, yet Shiva said, 'This is destiny's decree. It will not be otherwise. That which is destined must take place.' Then that lady of great energy, the queen of King Drupada, when her season came, observing all the regulations about purity, approached Drupada. And in due time the wife of Prashata conceived, agreeably to destiny's decree, as I was informed, O king, by Narada. And that lady, of eyes like lotus petals, continued to hold the embryo in her womb. And, O son of Kuru's race, the mighty armed King Drupada, from paternal affection, attended to every comfort of that dear wife of his. And, O Kaurava, the wife of that lord of earth, the royal Drupada, who was childless, had all her wishes gratified. And in due time, O monarch, that goddess, the queen of Drupada, gave birth to a daughter of great beauty. Thereupon, the strong-minded wife of that king, the childless Drupada, gave out, O monarch, that the child she had brought forth was a son. And then King Drupada, O ruler of men, caused all the rites prescribed for a male child to be performed in respect of that misrepresented daughter, as if she were really a son. And saying that the child was a son, Drupada's queen kept her counsels very carefully. And no other man in the city, save Prashata, knew the sex of that child. Believing these words of the deity of unfading energy, he too concealed the real sex of his child, saying, "She is a son." And, O king, Drupada caused all the rites of infancy, prescribed for a son, to be performed in respect of that child, and he bestowed the name of Sikandin on her. I alone, through my spies and from Narada words, knew the truth, informed as I previously was of the words of the god and of the ascetic austerities of Amva. Section XI. Bhishma said, Drupada, O chastiser of foes, bestowed great attention on everything in connection with that daughter of his, teaching her writing and painting and all the arts. And in arrows and weapons that child became a disciple of Drona. And the child's mother, of superior complexion, then urged the king, her husband, to find, O monarch, a wife for her, as if she were a son. Then Prashata, beholding that daughter of his to have attained the full development of youth and assured of her sex, began to consult with his queen. And Drupada said, This daughter of mine that so enhanceth my woe, hath attained her youth. Concealed, however, she hath hitherto been by me at the words of the trident-bearing deity. The queen replied, That, O great king, can never be untrue. Why, indeed, would the Lord of the 3 worlds say that would not occur? If it pleases thee, O king, I will speak, and listen to my words, and, O son of Prashata's race, having listened to me, follow thy own inclination. Let the wedding of this child with a wife be caused to be performed carefully. The words of that God will be true. This is my certain belief. Then that royal couple, having settled a resolution of that affair, chose the daughter of the king of the Dasanakas as their son's wife. After this, the royal Drupada, that lion among kings, having inquired about the purity of descent of all the rulers of the earth, selected the daughter of the king of Dasanakas for wife to Sikandin. He, who was called the king of the Dasanakas, was named Varman, and he gave away his daughter to Sikandin. And Varman, the king of the Dasanakas, was a powerful monarch, incapable of being easily vanquished, incapable of being resisted. That Hysult monarch possessed a large army, and sometimes after the wedding, the daughter of Varman, O best of monarchs, attained her youth while the daughter of Drupada also had attained hers. And Sikandin, after marriage, came back to Campania. And the former soon came to know that the latter was a woman like herself. And the daughter of Varman, having ascertained that Sikandin was really a woman, bashfully represented unto her nurses and companions everything about the so-called son of the king of the Panchalas. Then, O tiger among kings, those nurses of the Dasanakas country were filled with great grief and sent emissaries unto their king. And those emissaries represented unto the king of the Dasanakas everything about the imposture that has taken place. And, thereupon, the king of the Dasanakas was filled with wrath. Indeed, O bull of the Brata race, Varman, hearing the news after the expiry of a few days, was much afflicted with wrath. The ruler of the Dasanakas then, filled with fierce wrath, sent a messenger to Drupada's abode. And the messenger of King Varman, having alone approached Drupada, took him aside and said unto him in private, The king of the Dasanakas, O monarch, deceived by thee and enraged, O sinless one, at the insult thou hast offered him, hath said these words unto thee, thou hast humiliated me. Without doubt it was not wisely done by thee. Thou hadst, from folly, solicited my daughter for thy daughter. O wicked one, reap now the consequence of that act of deception. I will now slay thee with all thy relatives and advisers. Wait a little. Section XI. Bhishma said, thus addressed, O king, by that messenger, King Drupada, like a thief caught in the act, could not speak. He exerted himself greatly by sending sweet-speeched emissaries with his own instruction to them, saying, this is not so, in order to pacify his brother. King Varman, however, ascertaining once again that the child of the king of the Panchalas was really a daughter, issued out of his city without losing any time. He then sent messages unto all his powerful friends about the deception practiced on his daughter, of which he had heard from her nurses. Then, that best of kings, having mustered a large army, resolved, O Bharata, to march against Drupada. Then, O monarch, King Varman held a consultation with his ministers about the ruler of the Panchalas. And it was settled among those Hysult kings that if, O monarch, Sikandin was really a daughter, they should bind the ruler of the Panchalas and drag him from his city, and installing another king over the Panchalas, they should slay Drupada with Sikandin. Taking that to be the fixed resolution of all whom he had summoned, King Varman once more sent an envoy to the descendant of Prishata, saying, I will slay thee, be calm. Bhishma continued, King Drupada was not naturally courageous. In consequence, again, of that offence of his, he became filled with fear. Sending his envoys again to the ruler of the Dasanakas, King Drupada, afflicted with grief, approached his wife and took counsel with her. And possessed with great fright and with heart afflicted with grief, the king of the Panchalas said unto his favourite wife, the mother of Sikandin, these words, My powerful brother, King Varman, having mustered a large force, is coming towards me in anger. Fools that we both are, what are we now to do in respect of this our daughter? Thy son, Sikandin, hath been suspected to be a daughter. Under this suspicion, Varman with his allies and followed by his army wisheth to slay me, thinking that he hath been deceived by me. O thou of beautiful hips, tell us now what is true or false in this, O beautiful lady. O blessed lady, hearing from thee first, I will settle how to act. I am very much endangered, and this child, Sikandin, also is equally so. Indeed, O Queen, O Lady of the fairest complexion, thou too art threatened with danger. For the relief of all, tell me who asketh thee what the truth is. O thou of beautiful hips and sweet smiles, hearing what thou hast to say, I shall act suitably. Although I have been deceived by thee as to the duties I owe towards the son, yet, O beautiful lady, from kindness I will act towards you both in a suitable manner. Therefore, do not fear, nor let this daughter of thine fear anything. Indeed, I have deceived the king of the Dasanakas. Tell me, O highly blessed lady, how may I act towards him so that all may yet turn up well? Indeed, although the king knew everything, yet he addressed his wife in the presence of others in this way, to proclaim his own innocence before others. His queen then answered him in the following words. Section Xif. Bhishma said, Then, O mighty armed king, Sikandin's mother represented unto her lord the truth about her daughter, Sikandin. And she said, Childless, O great king, as I was, from fear of my co-wives, when Sikandini, my daughter, was born, I represented unto you that it was a son. For thy love of me, thou also hast corroborated it, and, O bull among kings, thou hadst performed all the rites prescribed for a son in respect of this daughter of mine. Thou then didst marry her, O king, to the daughter of the king of the Dasanakas. I also approved of this act, remembering the words of the great God. Indeed, I did not prevent it, remembering the words of Shiva, born a daughter, she will become a son. Hearing all this, Drupada, otherwise called Yajnasna, informed all his counselors of these facts. And, O monarch, the king then took counsel with ministers for the proper protection of his subjects from the would-be invader. Although he had himself deceived the king of the Dasanakas, yet giving it out that the alliance he had made was proper, he began to settle his plans with undivided attention. King Drupada's city was, O Bharata, naturally well protected. Yet at the advent of danger, O monarch, they began to protect it all the more carefully and fortify it with defensive works. The king, however, with his queen, was greatly afflicted, thinking of how a war might not take place with his brother. Reflecting on this, he began to pay his adorations to the gods. His respected wife, beholding him relying on the god and paying his adorations to them, then addressed him, O king, and said, Homage to the gods is productive of benefits. It is, therefore, approved by the righteous. What shall I say, again, of those that are sunk in an ocean of distress? Therefore, pay homage to those that are thy superiors, and let all the gods also be worshipped, making large presents the while, unto the Brahmanas. Let oblations be poured on the fire for pacifying the ruler of the Dasanakas. O Lord, think of the means by which, without a war, thou mayst be able to pacify thy brother. Through the grace of the gods all this will happen. For the preservation of this city, O thou of large eyes, thou hast taken counsel with thy ministers. Do all, O king, that those counsels seem to indicate, for reliance on the gods, when supported by human exertion, always, O king, leadeth to success. If these two do not go hand in hand, success becometh unattainable. Therefore, with all thy advisers, make such arrangements in thy city as are proper, and pay homage, O monarch, as thou pleasest, to the gods. That while husband and wife were conversing with each other thus, both filled with grief, their helpless daughter, Sikandini, was filled with shame. She then reflected, saying, It is for me that these two are plunged into grief. Thinking so, she resolved upon putting an end to her own life. Having formed this determination, she left home, filled with heavy sorrow, and went into a dense and solitary forest that was the haunt, O king, of a very formidable Yakshur called Stunakarna. From fear of that Yakshur, men never went into that forest. And within it stood a mansion with high walls and a gateway, plastered over with powdered earth, and rich with smoke bearing the fragrance of fried paddy. Entering that mansion, Sikandini, the daughter of a Drupada, O king, began to reduce herself by foregoing all food for many days. Thereupon, the Yakshur named Stuna, who was endued with kindness, showed himself unto her. And he inquired of her, saying, For what object is this endeavour of thine? I will accomplish it, tell me without delay. Thus asked, the maiden answered him, repeatedly saying, Thou art unable to accomplish it. The Gayaka, however, rejoined, without a moment's delay, saying, Accomplish it I will. I am a follower of the Lord of Treasures. I can, O princess, grant boons. I will grant thee even that which cannot be given. Tell me what thou hast to say. Thus assured, Sikandini represented in detail everything that had happened, unto the chief of Yakshas called Stunakarna. And she said, My father, O Yakshur, will soon meet with destruction. The ruler of the Dasanakas marketh against him in rage. That king eased in golden mail is endued with great might and great courage. Therefore, O Yakshur, save me, my mother, and my father. Indeed, thou hast already pledged thyself to relieve my distress. Through thy grace, O Yakshur, I would become a perfect man. As long as that king may not depart from my city, so long, O great Yakshur, show me grace, O Gayaka. Section CXCV. Bhishma said, hearing, O bull of Bharata's race, those words of Sikandini, afflicted by destiny, that Yakshur said after reflecting in his mind, these words, indeed, it was ordained to be so, and, O Kaurava, it was ordained for my grief. The Yakshur said, O blessed lady, I will certainly do what thou wishest. Listen, however, to the condition I make. For a certain period, I will give thee my manhood. Thou must, however, come back to me in due time. Pledge thyself to do so. Possessed of immense power, I am a ranger of the skies, wandering at my pleasure, and capable of accomplishing whatever I intend. Through my grace, save the city and thy kinsmen wholly. I will bear thy womanhood, O princess. Pledge thy truth to me, I will do what is agreeable to thee. Thus addressed, Sikandini said unto him, O Holy One of excellent vows, I will give thee back thy manhood. O wanderer of the night, bear thou my womanhood for a short time. After the ruler of the Dasanakas, who is cased in a golden mail, will have departed from my city, I will once more become a maiden, and thou wilt become a man. Bhishma continued, having said this, unto each other, they both, O king, made a covenant, and imparted unto each other's body their sexes. And the Yakshastuna, O Bharata, became a female, while Sikandini obtained the blazing form of the Yakshur. Then, O king, Sikandini of Panchala's race, having obtained manhood, entered his city in great joy and approached his father. And he represented unto Drupada everything that had happened. And Drupada, hearing it all, became highly glad. And along with his wife the king recollected the words of Maeswara. And he forthwith sent, O king, messenger unto the ruler of the Dasanakas, saying, This my child is a male. Let it be believed by thee. The king of the Dasanakas, meanwhile, filled with sorrow and grief, suddenly approached Drupada, the ruler of the Panchalas, and arrived at Kampiya. The Dasanaka king dispatched, after paying him proper honours, an envoy who was one of the foremost of those conversant with the Vedas. As he addressed the envoy, saying, Instructed by me, O messenger, say unto that worst of kings, the ruler of the Panchalas, these words, viz. O thou of wicked understanding, having selected my daughter as a wife for one who is thy daughter, thou shalt today, without doubt, behold the fruit of that act of deception. Thus addressed and dispatched by him, O best of kings, the Brahmana set out for Drupada's city as Dasanaka's envoy. And having arrived at the city, the priest went unto Drupada's presence. The king of the Panchalas then, with Sikandin, offered the envoy, O king, a cow and honey. The Brahmana, however, without accepting that worship, said unto him these words that had been communicated through him by the brave ruler of the Dasanakas, who was cased in a golden mail. And he said, O thou of vile behaviours, I have been deceived by thee through thy daughter, as the means. I will exterminate thee with thy counsellors and sons and kinsmen. Having, in the midst of his counsellors, been made by that priest to hear those words fraught with censure and uttered by the ruler of the Dasanakas, King Drupada then, O chief of Bharata's race, assuming a mild behaviour from motives of the friendship, said, The reply to these words of my brother that thou hast said unto me, O Brahmana, will be carried to that monarch by my envoy. And King Drupada then sent unto the high Sultanavarman a Brahmana learned in the Vedas as his envoy. And that envoy, going unto King Hiranyavarman, the ruler of the Dasanakas, said unto him, O monarch, the word that Drupada had entrusted him with. And he said, This my child is really a male. Let it be made clear by means of witness. Somebody has spoken falsely to thee. That should not be believed. Then the king of the Dasanakas, having heard the words of Drupada, was filled with sorrow and dispatched a number of young ladies of great beauty for ascertaining whether Sikandin was a male or female. Dispatched by him, those ladies, having ascertained the truth, joyfully told the king of the Dasanakas everything, viz., that Sikandin, O chief of the Kuras, was a powerful person of the masculine sex. Hearing that testimony, the ruler of the Dasanakas was filled with great joy, and wending then unto his brother Drupada, passed a few days with him and joy. And the king, rejoiced as he was, gave unto Sikandin much wealth, many elephants and steeds and kine. And worshipped by Drupada, as long as he stayed, the Dasanaka king then departed, having rebuked his daughter. And after King Hiranyavarman, the ruler of the Dasanakas, had departed enjoined with his anger quelled, Sikandin began to rejoice exceedingly. Meanwhile, some time after, the exchange of sexes had taken place. Kuvera, who was always borne on the shoulders of human beings, in course of a journey through the earth, came to the abode of Stuna. Staying in the welkin above that mansion, the protector of all the treasures saw that the excellent abode of the Yaksha Stuna was well adorned with beautiful garland of flowers, and perfumed with fragrant roots of grass and many sweet scents. And it was decked with canopies, and scented incense. And it was also beautiful with standards and banners. And it was filled with edibles and drink of every kind. And beholding that beautiful abode of the Yaksha decked all over, and filled also with garlands of jewels and gems, and perfumed with the fragrance of divers kinds of flowers, and well watered, and well swept, the lord of the Yakshas addressed the Yakshas that followed him, saying, Ye that are endued with immeasurable prowess, this mansion of Stuna is well adorned. Why, however, doth not that wight of wicked understanding come to me? And since that wicked souled one, knowing I am here, approacheth me not. Therefore, some severe punishment should be inflicted on him. Even this is my intention. Hearing these words of his, the Yakshas said, O king, the royal Drupada had a daughter born unto him, of the name of Sikandini. Unto her, for some reason, Stuna had given her his own manhood, and having taken her womanhood upon him, he stayeth within his abode having become a woman. Bearing as he doth a feminine form, he doth not, therefore, approach thee in shame. It is for this reason, O king, that Stuna cometh not to thee. Hearing all this, do what may be proper. Let the car be stopped here. Let Stuna be brought to me, were the words that the Lord of the Yakshas uttered, and repeatedly said, I will punish him! Summoned then by the Lord of Yakshas, Stuna bearing a feminine form came thither, O king, and stood before him in shame. Then, O thou of Kuru's race, the giver of wealth cursed him in anger, saying, Ye Gaikas, let the femininity of the wretch remain as it is. And the high-souled Lord of the Yakshas also said, Since humiliating all the Yakshas, thou hast, O thou of sinful deeds, given away thy own sex to Sikandini and taken from her, O thou of wicked understanding, her femininity, since, O wicked wretch, thou hast done what hath never been done by anybody, therefore from this day, thou shalt remain a woman and she shall remain a man. At these words of his, all the Yakshas began to soften Vaisravana for the sake of Stunakana, repeatedly saying, Set a limit to thy curse. The high-souled Lord of the Yakshas then said unto all these Yakshas that followed him, from desire of setting a limit to his curse, these words, After Sikandin's death, ye Yakshas, this one will regain his own form. Therefore, let this high-souled Yaksha Stuna be freed from his anxiety. Having said this, the illustrious and divine king of the Yakshas, receiving due worship, departed with all his followers who were capable of traversing a great distance within the shortest space of time. And Stuna, with that curse pronounced on him, continued to live there. And when the time came, Sikandin, without losing a moment, came unto that wanderer of the night. And approaching his presence, he said, I have come to thee, O Holy One. Stuna then repeatedly said unto him, I am pleased with thee. Indeed, beholding that prince returned to him without guile, Stuna told Sikandin everything that had happened. Indeed, the Yaksha said, O son of a king, for thee I have been cursed by Vaisravana. Go now, and live happily amongst men as thou choosest. Thy coming here and the arrival of Pulastia's son were, I think, both ordained from beforehand. All this was incapable of being prevented. Bhishma continued, thus addressed by the Yaksha Stuna, Sikandin, O Bharata, came to his city, filled with great joy. And he worshipped with diverse scents and garlands of flower and costly presents persons of the regenerate class, deities, big trees and crossways. And Drupada, the ruler of the Panchalas, along with his son Sikandin, whose wishes had been crowned with success, and with also his kinsmen, became exceedingly glad. And the king then, O bull of Kuru's race, gave his son, Sikandin, who had been a woman, as a pupil, O monarch, to Drona. And Prince Sikandin obtained, along with yourselves, the whole science of arms with its 4 divisions. And his brother, Drishtadama of Prishata's race, also obtained the same. Indeed, all this way represented unto me, O sire, by the spies, disguised as idiots and as persons without the senses of vision and hearing, whom I had set upon Drupada. It is thus, O king, that best of Rathas, Sikandin, the son of Drupada, having first been born a female, subsequently became a person of the other sex. And it was the eldest daughter of the ruler of Kusi, celebrated by the name of Amva, who was, O bull of Bharata's race, born in Drupada's line as Sikandin. If he approacheth me bow in hand and desirous of fight, I will not look at him even for a moment nor smite him, O thou of unfading glory. Even this is my vow, known over all the world, viz., that I will not, O son of Kuru's race, shoot weapons upon a woman, or one that was a woman before, or one bearing a feminine name, or one whose form resembleth a woman's. I will not, for this reason, slay Sikandin. Even this, O sire, is the story that I have ascertained of Sikandin's birth. I will not, therefore, slay him in battle even if he approacheth me weapon in hand. If Bhishma slayeth a woman, the righteous will all speak ill of him. I will not, therefore, slay him even if I behold him waiting for battle. Sanjaya continued, hearing these words of Bhishma, King Duryodhana of Kuru's race, reflecting for a moment, thought even that behavior was proper for Bhishma. Section Kskvai. Sanjaya said, when the night passed away and morning came, thy sons once more, in the midst of all the troops, asked their grandsire, saying, O son of Ganga, this army that is ready for fight, of Bandu's son, that abounds with men, elephants, and steeds, that is crowded with Maharathas, that is protected by these mighty bowmen endued with great strength, viz., Bhima and Arjuna and others headed by Drishadima, and all resembling the very regions of the world, that is invincible and incapable of being withstood, that resembles the unbounded sea, this sea of warriors incapable of being agitated by the very gods in battle. In how many days, O son of Ganga, O thou of great effulgence, canst thou annihilate it, and in what time can that mighty bowman, our preceptor, Drona, in what time also the mighty Kripa, in what time Karna, who taketh a pleasure in battle, and in what time that best of Brahmanas, viz., the son of Drona, can each annihilate it? Ye that are in my army are all acquainted with celestial weapons. I desire to know this, for the curiosity I feel in my heart is great. O thou of mighty arms, it behoveth thee to say this to me. Bhishma said, O foremost one of the Kurus, O Lord of the earth, thou inquirest about the strength and weakness of the foe. This, indeed, is worthy of thee. Listen, O king, as I tell thee the utmost limit of my power in battle, or of the energy of my weapons, or of the might of my arms, O thou of mighty arms. As regards ordinary combatants, one should fight with them artlessly. As regards those that are possessed of powers of deception, one should fight with them aided by the ways of deception. Even this is what hath been laid down in respect of the duties of warriors. I can annihilate the Pandava army, O blessed monarch, taking every morning 10,000 ordinary warriors and 1,000 car warriors as my share from day to day. Cased in mail and always exerting myself actively, I can, O Bharata, annihilate this large force, according to this arrangement as regards both number and time. If, however, stationed in battle, I shoot my great weapons that slay hundreds and thousands at a time, then I can, O Bharata, finish the slaughter in a month. Sanjaya continued, hearing these words of Bhishma, King Duryodhana then asked Drona, O monarch, that foremost one of Vangira's race, saying, O preceptor, in what time canst thou annihilate the troops of Bandu's son? Thus addressed by him, Drona said smilingly, I am old, O mighty armed one. My energy and activity have both become weak. With the fire of my weapons I can consume the army of the Pandavas, like Santanu's son Bhishma, I think, in a month's time. Even this is the limit of my power, even this is the limit of my strength. Then Saradwat's son Kripa said that he could annihilate the foe in 2 months' time. Drona's son, Aswathaman, pledged himself to annihilate the Pandava army in 10 nights. Karna, however, acquainted as he was with weapons of high efficacy, pledged himself to achieve that feat in 5 days. Hearing the words of the suitor's son, the son of the ocean going, Ganga laughed aloud and said, As long, O son of Radha, as thou encounterest not in battle Patha with his arrows, conch, and bows and rushing to the combat on his car with Vasudeva in his company, so long mayest thou think so. Why, thou art capable of saying anything, even what thou pleasest. Section XVII. Vaisampayana said, hearing these words of the leaders of the Kuru army, Kunti's son Yudhishthira, summoning all his brothers, said unto them these words in private. Yudhishthira said, The spies I had placed in the army of Dhritarashtra's son brought me this news in the morning. Duryodhana asked Ganga's son of great vows, saying, O Lord, in what time canst thou annihilate the troops of Bandu's sons? Indeed, the wicked Duryodhana was answered by him in these words, viz. In a month. Drona also declared that he could do the same feat in about the same time. Gautama, Kripa, indicated twice that period, as hath been heard by us. Drona's son acquainted with weapons of high efficacy declared the period, in his case, to be 10 nights. Karna also, acquainted with weapons of high efficacy, asked in the midst of the chorus, declared that I could complete the slaughter in 5 days. Therefore, I also, O Arjuna, am desirous of hearing thy words. In what time canst thou, O Falguni, exterminate the foe? Thus addressed by the king, Dhananjaya of curly hair, casting a look upon Vasudeva, said these words, All these, Bhishma and others, are high-souled warriors, accomplished in arms and acquainted with all modes of warfare. Without doubt, O king, they can exterminate our forces, even thus. Let thy heart's anguish, however, be dispelled. I tell thee truly that with Vasudeva as my ally, I can, on the single car, exterminate the 3 worlds with even the immortals. Indeed, all mobile creatures that were, are, will be, in the twinkling of the eye. This is what I think. That terrible and mighty weapon which the Lord of all creatures, Mahadeva, gave me on the occasion of my hand-to-hand encounter with him, in the guise of a hunter, still existeth with me. Indeed, O tiger among men, that weapon which the Lord of all creatures useth at the end of Yuga for destroying created things, existeth with me. Ganga's son knoweth not that weapon, nor Drona nor Gautama, Kripa, nor Drona's son, O king. How, therefore, can the suitor's son know it? It is not, however, proper to slay ordinary men in battle by means of celestial weapons. We shall, on the other hand, vanquish our foes in a fair fight. Then, these tigers among men, O king, are thy allies. All of them are well versed in celestial weapons, and all of them are eager for battle. All of them after their initiation in the Vedas, have undergone the final bath in sacrifices. All of them are unvanquished. They are competent, O son of Pandu, to slay in battle the army of even the celestials. Thou hast for thy allies Sikandin, and Ayudhana and Drystadama of Prashata's race, and Bhimasena, and these twins, and Yadamanyu, and Utamaujas, and Virata and Drupada, who are equal in battle, and to Bhishma and Drona, and the mighty armed Sankha, and Hidimva's son of great might, and this latter's son Anjan Pavan endued with great strength and prowess, and Seni's descendant of mighty arms and well versed in battle, and the mighty Abhimanyu and the 5 sons of Draupadi. Thou art thyself, again, competent to exterminate the 3 worlds. O thou that art endued with effulgence equal unto that of Sakra himself, I know it, O Kaurava, for it is manifest, that man upon whom thou mayest cast thy eyes in anger is sure to be annihilated. Section XVI. Vaisampayana said, next morning, under a cloudless sky, all the kings, urged by Dhritarashtra's son, Duryodhana, set out against the Pandavas. And all of them had purified themselves by baths, were decked in garlands, and attired in white robes. And having poured libations on fire, caused Brahmanas to utter benedictions on them, they took up their weapons and raised their respective standards. And all of them were conversant with the Vedas, and endued with great bravery, and had practiced excellent vows. And all of them were grantors of other people's wishes, and all were skilled in battle. Endued with great strength, they set out, reposing confidence on one another, and with singleness of purpose desiring to win in battle the highest regions. And first Vinda and Danuvinda, both of Avanti, and Kikayas, and the Valakas, all set out with Bharadwaja's son at their head. Then came Aswathaman, and Santanu's son, Bhishma, and Jayadratha of the country of the Sindhu, and the kings of the southern and the western countries and of the hilly regions, and Sakuni, the ruler of the Gandhras, and all the chiefs of the eastern and the northern regions, and the Sakas, the Kairatas, and Yavanas, the Sivis and the Vasatis with their Maharathas at the heads of their respective divisions. All these great Ka warriors marched in the second division. Then came Kritavarman at the head of his troops, and that mighty Ka warrior, viz., the ruler of the Trigartas, and the king Duryodhana surrounded by his brothers, and Sala, and Bharisravas, and Saliya, and Vrihadratha, the ruler of the Koslas. These all marched in the rear, with Dhritarashtra's sons at their head. And all these Dhritarashtras endued with great might, uniting together in proper order, and all clad in mail, took up their position at the other end of Kurukshetra, and, O Bharata, Duryodhana caused his encampment to be so adorned as to make it look like a second Hastinapura. Indeed, O king, even those that were clever among the citizens of Hastinapura could not distinguish their city from the encampment. And the Kuru king caused inaccessible pavilions, similar to his own, to be erected by hundreds and thousands for the other kings in his army. And those tents, O king, for the accommodation of the troops were well planted on an area measuring full 5 yojanas of that field of battle. And into those tents by thousands that were full of provisions, the rulers of the earth entered, each according to his courage, according to the strength he possessed. And King Duryodhana ordered excellent provisions to be supplied for all those high-souled kings with their troops consisting of infantry, elephants, and horses, and with all their followers. And as regards all those that subsisted upon mechanical arts, and all the bards, singers, and panegyrists devoted to his cause, and vendors, and traders, and prostitutes, and spies, and persons who had come to witness the battle, the Kuru king made due provision for all of them. Section 6. Vaisampayana said, like Duryodhana, King Yudhishthira also, the son of Kunti and Dharma, ordered out, O Bharata, his heroic warriors headed by Drishthadhyumna. Indeed, he ordered that slayer of foes and commander of force, that leader, steady in prowess, of the Chedis, the Kasis, and the Karushas, viz., Drishtaketu, as also Virata, and Drupada, and Uyudana, and Sikandin, and those 2 mighty bowmen, those 2 princes of Panchala, viz., Yadamanu and Uttamaujas, to set out. Those brave warriors, cased in handsome coats of mail and decked with golden earrings, blazed forth like fires on the sacrificial altar when fed with clarified butter. Indeed, those mighty bowmen looked resplendent like the planets in the firmament. Then that bull among men King Yudhishthira, having duly honored all his combatants, ordered them to march. And King Yudhishthira ordered excellent provisions of food for those high-souled kings with their troops consisting of infantry, and elephants and horses, and with all their followers, as also for all those that subsisted on mechanical arts. And the son of Bandhu first ordered Abhimanyu, and Vrihanta, and the 5 sons of Draupadi, to march with Drishthadhyumna at their head. And he then dispatched Bhima, and Dhananjaya the son of Pandhu, in the second division of his forces, and the din made by the men moving and running about for harnessing their steeds and elephants and loading the cars with implements of battle, and the shouts of the cheerful combatants, seemed to touch the very heavens. And last of all, the king marched himself, accompanied by Virata and Drupada and the other monarchs, on his side. And that army of fierce bowmen commanded by Drishtadyumna, hitherto stationed in one place, but now extended into columns for marching, looked like the impetuous current of Ganga. Then the intelligent Yudhishthira, depending on his wisdom, disposed his divisions in a different order, confounding the sons of Dhritarashtra. And the son of Pandu ordered that those mighty bowmen, the 5 sons of Draupadi and Abhimanyu, and Nakula, and Sahadeva, and all the Prabhadrakas, and 10,000 horses, and 2,000 elephants, and 10,000 foot soldiers, and 500 cars, constituting the first irresistible division of his army, should be placed under the command of Bhimasena. And he placed in the middle division of his army Virata and Jayatsena, and those 2 mighty car warriors, viz., Yudhamanyu and Uttamura, the 2 high-souled princes of Panchala, both endued with great prowess and both armed with mace and bow. And in this middle division marched Vasudeva and Dhananjaya. There were placed combatants highly accomplished in arms and burning with anger. Amongst them were steeds ridden by brave warriors, and 5,000 elephants, and crowds of cars all around, and foot soldiers in thousands, that were all brave and armed with bows, swords, and maces, marched behind them, as thousands marched before them. And in that part of that sea of troops, where Yudhishthira himself was, there were stationed numerous lords of earth. And there also were thousands of elephants, and steeds by 10,000s, and cars and foot soldiers also by thousands. And there also marched Obulaman kings, Chekatana with his own large force, and King Drishtaketu, the leader of the Chedis. And there also was that mighty bowman, Satyaki, the foremost car warrior of the Vrishnis, that mighty combatant, surrounded by hundreds and thousands of cars and leading them to battle. And those bulls among men, Kshitrun and Kshitrudeva, mounted on their cars, marched behind, protecting the rear. And there, in the rear, were the wagons, stalls, uniforms, vehicles and draft animals. There also were thousands of elephants and horses by tens of thousands. And taking all the invalids and women, and all that were emaciated and weak, and all the animals carrying his treasures, and all his granaries, with the aid of his elephant divisions, Yudhishthira marched slowly. And he was followed by Saukati, who steadily adhered to truth and was invincible in battle, and Srinamat, and Vasudeva and Vibhu, the son of the ruler of Kazi, with 20,000 cars, and 100 million steeds of high metal, each bearing scores of bells on its limbs, and 20,000 smiting elephants with tusks as long as plowshares, all of good breed and divided temples and all resembling moving masses of clouds. Indeed, these usually walked behind those monarchs. Besides these, O Bharata, the elephants that Yudhishthira had in his 7 Akshoinis, numbering 70,000 with whom trickling down their trunks and from their mouths, and resembling, on that account, showering clouds, also followed the king, like moving hills. Thus was arrayed that terrible force of the intelligent son of Kunti. And relying upon that force he battled with Sayadana, the son of Dhritarashtra, besides those already named, other men by hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands, in divisions numbering by thousands, followed the Pandava army, roaring loudly. And the warriors by thousands and 10,000s, filled with joy, beat their drums by thousands and blew conchs by tens of thousands. The end of Udyoga Parva. Footnotes. 1. Return. That is, passage of the sun from the winter to the summer solstice. 2. Return. Divination was practiced by reference to the stars in the night. 3. return. The question that Dhritarashtra asks is easy enough. The rishi, having applauded knowledge and its efficacy in procuring emancipation, the king asks, if knowledge is of such efficacy, what then is the value of karma or acts, that is prayers and sacrifices as ordained in the Vedas? Ajaya is the instrumental form of aja, meaning sacrifices, religious rites, and ceremonies. Param is explained by Nilakantha to mean moksha prapakatvam, that is, capacity to lead to emancipation. It should be noted here that the Hindu idea of emancipation is not bliss enjoyed by a conscious self, but freedom from the obligation of rebirth and karma. Mere karma, as such, implies pain and misery, and the Supreme Soul, Parabrahman, is without action and attributes. Although other kinds of salvation are spoken of in other systems of philosophy, the emancipation that forms the subject of these queries and answers is freedom from this karma. 4. Return. The rishi answers, yes, karma or action does, indeed, lead to the emancipate state. In the regions of which thou speakest, there are both bliss and emancipation. Athajata is explained by Nilakantha to mean Boamokshakai Prayojana Samanyam. The second line is elliptical, the construction being Paratma Aniha, San, Parame Iati, Anathatu, Margina Maganihatia Param, Prati. Paratma is explained by Nilakantha to mean one who regards the material body to be self. In the succeeding slokas, the rishi uses the word Deen, which, in this connection, is the same as Dehabhimanan. The rishi's answer is, the materialist, by renouncing desire, attaineth to the state of the Supreme Soul, that is, emancipation. The sense seems to be that by renouncing desire, both actions and attributes are lost. The state, therefore, of such a soul is one of inaction, or perfect quietude, and the absence of attributes, which is exactly the nature of the Supreme Soul. If, again, emancipation be sought without extinguishing desire, that is, by the aid of work, prayers and sacrifices, it is to be attained by extinguishing path by a path, that is, the seeker is to proceed along a definite or prescribed or ordained route, taking care that the portions of the route he once passes over may not have to be retrodden by him. Action, as explained in a subsequent sloka, leadeth, it is true, to regions of bliss and emancipation, but that state is transitory, for when the merit is extinguished, the state that was attained in consequence of it is extinguished, and the person falling off has to recommence action. If, therefore, permanent emancipation is to be attained, the obligation of recommencing action must be got rid of, that is, care must be taken that the portions of the route once passed over may not have to be retrodden. 5. Return. Apparently this question of Dhritarashtra is not connected with what precedes. The connection, however, is intimate, and the question follows as a corollary from the rishi's last answer. The rishi, having said that the ordinary soul, by a certain process, that is, renunciation of desire, attains to the state of the Supreme Soul, Dhritarashtra infers that vice versa, it is the Supreme Soul that becomes the ordinary soul. For, as Nilakantha puts it in the phraseology of the Nyaya school, things different cannot become what they are not, and unless things are similar, they cannot become of the same nature. Applying this maxim of the Nyaya, it is seen that when the ordinary soul becomes the Supreme Soul, these are not different, and, therefore, it is the Supreme Soul that becomes the ordinary soul. Under this impression Dhritarashtra asks, well, if it is the Supreme Soul that becomes the ordinary soul, who is it that urgeth the Supreme Soul to become so? And if all this universe be indeed that soul, in consequence of the latter pervading and entering into everything, then divested of desire as the Supreme Soul is, where is the possibility of its action or work being the direct consequence of desire? If it is answered that the universe is the deity's leela, mere sport, as some schools of philosophy assert, Then, as every sport is ascribable to some motive of happiness, what can be the happiness of the deity, who, as presupposed, is without desire? 6. Return. The Rishi answers, there is a great objection in admitting the complete or essential identity of things different, that is, the ordinary soul and supreme soul being different, their identity cannot be admitted. As regards creatures, they flow continually from Anadi Yoga, that is, the union of the supreme soul, which in itself is unconditioned, with the conditions of space, time, etc., that is, there is this much of identity, therefore, between the ordinary and the supreme soul, but not a complete or essential identity. It is also in consequence of this that the superiority of the supreme soul is not lost. The opposite theory would be destructive of that superiority. The favorite analogy of the thinkers of the school for explaining the connection of the supreme soul with the universe is derived from the connection of Akasa with Ghat. Akasa, that is, space as absolute and unconditioned, and space as confined by the limits of a vessel. The latter has a name, is moved when the vessel is moved, and is limited in space, while space itself, of which the vessel's space forms a part, is absolute and unconditioned, immovable, and unlimited. 7. Return. Cars, elephants, horses, infantry, vehicles other than cars, and warriors fighting from the backs of camels. 8. Return. Called also the Bidava fire. 9. Return. The allusion is to the incarnation of Vishnu as the horse-necked. Nilakanthu explains Shubhanakayam Jagat to be Veda Prancha, that is, the whole Vedas with all their contents. According to him, the sense of the passage has that Vishnu in that form swells with his own voice the Vedic notes chanted by the Brahmanas. 10. Return. Atotijalam Stravantiti Patilam. Thus Nilakantha. 11. Return. Literally, one that hath a beautiful or excellent face. 12. Return. The story of Viswamitra's promotion to the status of a Brahmana is highly characteristic. Engaged in a dispute with the Brahmana Rishi Vasishta, Viswamitra, who was a Kshatriya king, the son of Gusika, found, by bitter experience, that Kshatriya energy and might backed by the whole science of arms, availed nothing against a Brahmana's might, for Vasishta by his ascetic powers created myriads and myriads of fierce troops who inflicted a signal defeat on the great Kshatriya king. Baffled thus, Viswamitra retired to the breast of Himavat and paid court to Shiva. The great god appeared and Viswamitra begged him for the mastery of the whole science of weapons. The god granted his prayer. Viswamitra then came back and sought an encounter with Vasishta, but the latter by the aid only of his Brahmanical bamboo stick baffled the fiercest weapons of Viswamitra, of even celestial efficacy. Humiliated and disgraced, Viswamitra set his heart on becoming a Brahmana. He gave up his kingdom and retiring into the woods with his queen began to practice the severest austerities. After the expiration of 10,000 years, the creator Brahma appeared before him and addressed him as a royal rishi. Dispirited at this, he devoted himself to still severer austerities. At last, at Dharma's command, as here referred to, the great Kshatriya king became a Brahmana. This, in the Hindu scriptures, is the sole instance of a person belonging to a lower order becoming a Brahmana by ascetic austerities. 13. Return. These articles of cognate origin are clarified butter, milk, and other things used as libations in sacrifices. 14. Return. That is, the subdivisions of the pranava, the mysterious mantra, which is the beginning of everything, were first promulgated here. Nilakantha supposes this to refer to the origin of the Vedas, the Upanishads, and the various branches of the Srutis and the Smritis. 15. Return. Small divisions of time. 16. Return. The limbs that should be prominent or elevated in order to constitute an indication of beauty or auspiciousness are variously mentioned. The general opinion seems to be that these 6 only, viz., the back of each palm, the 2 dorsa, and the 2 bosoms should be elevated. Another opinion would seem to indicate that the 2 bosoms, the 2 hips, and the 2 eyes should be so. The 7 that should be delicate or slender are unanimously mentioned as the skin, the hair, the teeth, the fingers of the hands, the fingers of the feet, the waist, and the neck. The 3 that should be deep are the navel, the voice, and the understanding. The 5 that should be red are the 2 palms, the 2 outer corners of the eyes, the tongue, the nether and the upper lips, and the palate. These 5 also are variously given. 17. Return. The latter half of this sloka is variously read. The correct reading, I apprehend, is Namanani Sant Erutanyasn Vitastaya, that is, while transported across, were taken down by the river Vitasta, the latter being one of the 5 rivers of the Punjab. 18. Return. The science of arms, Danurved, classes arms under 4 heads, viz. Mukta, Amukta, Mukta, and Yantramukta. A Mukta weapon is one that is hurled from the hand, as a discus. An Amukta is not hurled from the hand, as a sword. A Mukta is one that is sometimes hurled and sometimes not, as a mace. A Yantramukta is one shot from a machine, as an arrow or a ball. All Mukta weapons are astras, while all Amukta ones are called sastras. 19. Return. The 1,000-handed Arjuna, called also Kartavi Arjuna, the vanquisher of Ravana, the chief of higher clan of Kshatriyas, having his capital at Mahishmati on the banks of the Narmada, near Buddha, was slain by Rama. The Mahabharata of Krishna Dwape Vyasa. Book 6. Bhishma Parva. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text. By Kesari Mohan Ganguly. 1883 to 1896. The Mahabharata. Bhishma Parva. Contents. Section I. Section 2. Section 3. Section 4. Section V. Section Vi. Section 7. Section 8. Section 9. Section X. Section 11. Section 12. Section 13. Section 14. Section 15. Section 16. Section 17. Section 18. Section 19. Section 20. Section 21. Section 22. Section 23. Section 24. Section 25. Section 26. Section 27. Section 28. Section 29. Section 30. Section 31. Section 32. Section 33. Section 34. Section 35. Section 36. Section 37. Section 38. Section 39. Section XL. Section XLI. Section XLI. Section XLI. Section XLIF. Section XLV. Section XLVI. Section XLVI. Section XLVI. Section XLIX. Section L. Section LI. Section LI. Section LI. Section LIF. Section LV. Section LVI. Section LVI. Section LVI. Section LIX. Section LX. Section LXI. Section LXI. Section LXI. Section LXIF. Section LXV. Section LXVI. Section LXVI. Section LXVI. Section LX6. Section LXX. Section LXXI. Section LXXI. Section LXXI. Section LXXIF. Section LXXV. Section LXXV. Section LXXVI. Section LXXVI. Section LXXX. Section LXXX. Section LXXC. Section LXXI. Section LXXI. Section LXXIF. Section LXXXV. Section LXXV. Section LXXVI. Section LXXVI. Section LXXX. Section XC. Section XCI. Section XCI. Section XCI. Section XCIF. Section XCV. Section XCVI. Section XCVI. Section XCVI. Section X6. Section C. Section C. Section C. Section CI. Section CIF. Section CV. Section CVI. Section XVI. Section XVI. Section 6. Section CX. Section CXI. Section XCI. Section XCI. Section XIF. Section CXV. Section CXVI. Section XVI. Section XVI. Section XX. Section CXX. Section CXXI. Section XXI. Section XXI. Section XXIF. Footnotes. Section I. Jamvu Kandanurmana Pava. Having bowed down to Narayana and Nara, the most exalted of male beings, and also to the goddess Saraswati, must the word Jaya be uttered. Janamejaya said, how did those heroes, the Kuras, the Pandavas, and the Somakas, and the Hysult kings assembled together from various countries, fight? Vaisampayana said, listen thou, O Lord of the earth, how those heroes, the Kuras, the Pandavas, and the Somakas, fought on the sacred plain of the Kurukshetra. When entering Kurukshetra, the Pandavas, endued with great might, along with the Somakas, advanced, desirous of victory, against the Kauravas. Accomplished in the study of the Vedas, all of them took great delight in battle. Expectant of success in battle with their troops, they faced the fight. Approaching the army of Dhritarashtra's son, those warriors, invincible in battle, to station themselves with their troops on the western part of the plain, their faces turned towards the east. Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, caused tents by thousands to be set up according to rule, beyond the region called Samantapanchaka. The whole earth seemed then to be empty, divested of horses and men, destitute of cars and elephants, and with only the children and the old left at home. From the whole area of Jamvudvipa over which the sun sheds his rays, 3 was collected that force, O best of kings. Men of all races, 4 assembled together, occupied an area extending for many yojanas over districts, rivers, hills, and woods. That bull among men, King Yudhishthira, ordered excellent food and other articles of enjoyment for all of them along with their animals. And Yudhishthira fixed diverse watchwords for them, so that one saying this should be known as belonging to the Pandavas. And that descendant of Kuru's race also settled names and badges for all of them for recognition during time of battle. Beholding the standard top of Pritha's son, the Hysult son of Dhritarashtra, with a white umbrella held over his head, in the midst of 1,000 elephants, and surrounded by his century of brothers, began with all the kings, on his side, to array his troops against the son of Pandu. Seeing Duryodhana, the Panchalas, who took delight in battle, were filled with joy and blew their loud-sounding conches and cymbals of sweet sounds. Beholding those troops so delighted, Pandu's son and Vasudeva of great energy had their hearts filled with joy. And those tigers among men, Vasudeva and Dhananjaya, seated on one car, having felt great joy, both blew their celestial conches. And hearing the blare of Giganta and the loud blast of Theodutes belonging unto the two, the combatants ejected urine and excreta. As other animals are filled with fear on hearing the voice of the roaring lion, even so became that force upon hearing those blasts. A frightful dust arose and nothing could be seen, for the sun himself, suddenly enveloped by it, seemed to have set. 5 A black cloud poured a shower of flesh and blood over the troops all around. All this seemed extraordinary. A wind rose there, bearing along the earth myriads of stony nodules, and afflicting therewith the combatants by hundreds and thousands. For all that, O monarch, both armies, filled with joy, stood at rest for battle, on Kurukshetra like two agitated oceans. Indeed, that encounter of the two armies was highly wonderful, like that of two oceans when the end of the Yuga is arrived. The whole earth was empty, having only the children and the old left at home, in consequence of that large army mustered by the Kauravas. 6 Then the Kurus, the Pandavas, and the Somakas made certain covenants, and settled the rules, O bull of Bharata's race, regarding the different kinds of combat. Persons equally circumstanced must encounter each other, fighting fairly. And if having fought fairly the combatants withdraw, without fear of molestation, even that would be gratifying to us. Those who engaged in contests of words should be fought against with words. Those that left the ranks should never be slain. 7 A car warrior should have a car warrior for his antagonist. He on the neck of an elephant should have a similar combatant for his foe. A horse should be met by a horse, and a foot soldier, O Bharata, should be met by a foot soldier. Guided by considerations of fitness, willingness, daring and might, one should strike another, giving notice. No one should strike another that is unprepared or panic-struck. One engaged with another, one seeking quarter, one retreating, one whose weapon is rendered unfit, uncased in mail, should never be struck. Car drivers, animals, yoked to cars or carrying weapons, men engaged in the transport of weapons, 9 players on drums and blowers of conches should never be struck. Having made these covenants, the Kurus, and the Pandavas, and the Somakas wondered much, gazing at each other. And having stationed their forces thus, those bulls among men, those high-souled once with their troops, became glad at heart, their joy being reflected on their countenances. Section 2. Vaisampayana said, seeing then the two armies, standing, on the east and the west for the fierce battle that was impending, the holy Rishi Vyasa, the son of Satyavati, that foremost of all persons acquainted with the Vedas, that grandsire of the Bharatas, conversant with the past, the present, and the future, and beholding everything as if it were present before his eyes, said these words in private unto the royal son of Vichitravirya, who was then distressed and giving way to sorrow, reflecting on the evil policy of his sons. Vyasa said, O king, thy sons and the other monarchs have their hour arrived. 10 Mustered in battle, they will kill one another. O Bharata, their hour having come, they will all perish. Bearing in mind the changes brought on by time, do not yield thy heart to grief. O king, if thou wish to see them fighting in battle, I will, O son, grant thee vision. Behold the battle. Dhritarashtra said, O best of regenerate Rishi, I like not to behold the slaughter of kinsmen. I shall, however, through thy potency hear of this battle minutely. Vaisampayana continued, upon his not wishing to see the battle but wishing to hear of it. Vyasa, that lord of boons, gave a boon to Sanjaya. And addressing Dhritarashtra he said, This Sanjaya, O king, will describe the battle to thee. Nothing in the whole battle will be beyond this one's eyes. endued, O king, with celestial vision, Sanjaya will narrate the battle to thee. He will have knowledge of everything, manifest or concealed, happening, by day or by night, even that which is thought of in the mind. Sanjaya shall know everything. Weapons will not cut him, and exertion will not fatigue him. This son of Gavalgani will come out of the battle with life. As regards myself, O bull of Bharata's race, the fame of these Kurus, as also of all the Pandavas, I will spread. Do not grieve. This is destiny, O tiger among men. It behoveth thee not to give way to grief. It is not capable of being prevented. As regards victory, it is there where righteousness is. Vaisampayana continued, that highly blessed and holy grandsire of the Kurus, having said so, once more addressed Dhritarashtra and said, Great will the slaughter be, O monarch, in this battle. I see here also numerous omens indicative of terror. Hawks and vultures, and crows and herons, together with cranes, are alighting on the tops of trees and gathering in flocks. These birds, delighted at the prospect of battle, are looking down on the field before them. Carnivorous beasts will feed on the flesh of elephants and steeds. Fierce herons, foreboding terror, and uttering merciless cries, are wheeling across the center towards the southern region. In both the twilights, prior and posterior, I daily behold, O Bharata, the sun during his rising and setting to be covered by headless trunks. Tricolored clouds with their extremities white and red and necks black, charged with lightning, and resembling maces, in figure, envelope the sun in both twilights. I have seen the sun, the moon, and the stars to be all blazing. No difference in their aspect is to be noted in the evening. I have seen this all day and all night. All this forebodes fear. On even the 15th night of the lighted fortnight in the month of Kartika, the moon, divested of splendor, became invisible, or of the hue of fire, the firmament being of the hue of the lotus. Many heroic lords of earth, kings and princes, endued with great bravery and possessed of arms resembling maces, will be slain and sleep lying down on the earth. Daily I notice in the sky during night time the fierce cries of battling boars and cats. 11 The images of gods and goddesses sometimes laugh, sometimes tremble, and sometimes again these vomit blood through their mouths, and sometimes they sweat and sometimes fall down. O monarch, drums, without being beaten, give sounds, and the great cars of Kshatriyas move without being drawn by animals yoked to them. Kokilas, woodpeckers, jaws, watercocks, parrots, crows, and peacocks utter terrible cries. Here and there, cavalry soldiers, cased in mail, armed with weapons, send forth fierce shouts. At sunrise flights of insects by hundreds are seen. In both twilights, the cardinal quarters seem to be ablaze, and the clouds, O Bharata, shower dust and flesh. She, O king, who is celebrated over the 3 worlds and is applauded by the righteous, even that constellation, Arundhati keepeth her lord, Vasishtha, on her back. The planet Sunny also, O king, appeareth afflicting the constellation Rohini. The sign of the deer in the moon hath deviated from its usual position. A great terror is indicated. Even though the sky is cloudless, a terrible roar is heard there. The animals are all weeping and their tears are falling fast. Section 3. Vyasa said, asses are taking births in kine. Some are having sexual pleasure with mothers. The trees in the forests are exhibiting unseasonable flowers and fruits. Women quick with child, and even those that are not so, are giving birth to monsters. Carnivorous beasts, mingling with carnivorous birds, are feeding together. Ill-omened beasts, some having 3 horns, some with 4 eyes, some with 5 legs, some with 2 sexual organs, some with 2 heads, some with 2 tails, some having fierce teeth, are being born, and with mouths wide open are uttering unholy cries. Horses with 3 legs, furnished with crests, having 4 teeth, and endued with horns, are also being born. O King, in thy city is also seen that the wives of many utterers of Brahma are bringing forth Garudas and peacocks. The mare is bringing forth the cow calf, and the bitch is bringing forth, O King, jackals and cocks, and antelopes and parrots are all uttering inauspicious cries. 12. Certain women are bringing forth 4 or 5 daughters at a time, and these as soon as they are born, dance and sing and laugh. The members of the lowest orders are laughing and dancing and singing, and thus indicating direful consequences. Infants, as if urged by death, are drawing red-armed images, and are running against one another, armed with clubs, and desirous of battle are also breaking down the towns. They erect in sport. Lotuses of different kinds and lilies are growing on trees. Strong winds are blowing fiercely, and the dust ceaseth not. The earth is frequently trembling, and Rahu approacheth towards the sun. The white planet, Ketu, stayeth, having passed beyond the constellation Chitra. All this particularly bodeth the destruction of the Kuras. A fierce comet riseth, afflicting the constellation Pusya. This great planet will cause frightful mischief to both the armies. Mars wheeleth towards Magha, and Vrihaspati, Jupiter, towards Ravana. The sun's offspring, Sunny, approaching towards the constellation Bhaga, afflicteth it. The planet Sukra, ascending towards Purvabhadra, shineth brilliantly, and wheeling towards the Uttarabhadra, looketh towards it, having effected a junction with a smaller planet. The white planet, Ketu, blazing up like fire mixed with smoke, stayeth, having attacked the bright constellation Jeshtha that is sacred to Indra. The constellation Dhruva, blazing fiercely, wheeleth towards the right. Both the moon and the sun are afflicting Rohini. The fierce planet, Rahu, hath taken up its position between the constellations Chitra and Swati. 13. The red-bodied, Mars, possessed of the effulgence of fire, wheeling circuitously, stayeth in a line with the constellations Ravana, overridden by Vrihaspati. The earth that produceth particular crops at particular seasons is now covered with the crops of every season. 14. Every barley stalk is graced with 5 ears, and every paddy stalk with 100. They that are the best of creatures in the worlds, and upon whom depends the universe, viz., kine, when milked after the calves have their suck, yield only blood. Radiant rays of light emanate from bows, and swords blaze forth brilliantly. It is evident that the weapons behold, before them, the battle, as if it were already arrived. The hue of weapons and the water, as also of coats of mail and standards, is like that of fire. A great slaughter will take place. In this battle, 15 No Brata, of the Kuras with the Pandavas, the earth, O monarch, will be a river of blood with the standards of warriors as its rafts. Animals and birds on all sides, with mouths blazing like fire, uttering fierce cries, and displaying these evil omens, are foreboding terrible consequences. A fierce bird with but 1 wing, 1 eye, and 1 leg, hovering over the sky in the night, screameth frightfully in wrath, as if for making the hearers vomit blood. It seemeth, O great king, that all weapons are now blazing with radiance. The effulgence of the constellation known by the name of the 7 high Sudrishis hath been dimmed. Those 2 blazing planets, viz., Vrihaspati and Sunny, having approached the constellation called Visakha, have become stationary for a whole year. 3 lunations twice meeting together in course of the same lunar fortnight. The duration of the latter is shortened by 2 days. 16. On the 13th day therefore, from the first lunation, according as it is the day of the full moon or the new moon, the moon and the sun are afflicted by Rahu. Such strange eclipses, both lunar and solar, forebode a great slaughter. 17. All the quarters of the earth, being overwhelmed by showers of dust, look inauspicious. Fierce clouds, portentous of danger, drop bloody showers during the night. Of fierce deeds is also, O monarch, afflicting the constellation Curtica. Rough winds, portending fierce danger, are constantly blowing. All these beget a war characterized by many sad incidents. 18 The constellations are divided into 3 classes. Upon one or another of each class, a planet of evil omen has shed its influence, foreboding terrible dangers. 19 A lunar fortnight had hitherto consisted of 14 days, or 15 days, as usual, or 16 days. This, however, I never knew that the day of new moon would be on the 13th day from the first lunation, or the day of full moon on the 13th day from the same. And yet in course of the same month both the moon and the sun have undergone eclipses on the 13th days from the day of the first lunation. 20 The sun and the moon therefore, by undergoing eclipses on unusual days, 21 will cause a great slaughter of the creatures of the earth. Indeed, Rakshasas, though drinking blood by mouthful, will yet not be satiated. The great rivers are flowing in opposite directions. The waters of rivers have become bloody. The wells, foaming up, are bellowing like bulls. 22 Meteors, effulgent like Indra's thunderbolt, fall with loud hisses. 23 When this night passeth away, evil consequences will overtake you. People, for meeting together, coming out of their houses with lighted brands, have still to encounter a thick gloom all round. 24 Great rishis have said that in view of such circumstances the earth drinks the blood of thousands of kings. From the mountains of Kailasa and Mandara and Himavat thousands of explosions are heard and thousands of summits are tumbling down. In consequence of the earth's trembling, each of the 4 oceans having swelled greatly, seems ready to transgress its continents for afflicting the earth. 25 Fierce winds charged with pointed pebbles are blowing, crushing mighty trees. In villages and towns trees, ordinary and sacred, are falling down, crushed by mighty winds and struck by lightning. The sacrificial fire, when Brahmanas pour libations on it, becomes blue, or red, or yellow. Its flames bend towards the left, yielding a bad scent, accompanied by loud reports. Touch, smell, and taste have, O monarch, become what they were not. The standards of warriors, repeatedly trembling, are emitting smoke. Drums and cymbals are throwing off showers of coal dust. And from the tops of tall trees all around, crows, wheeling in circles from the left, are uttering fierce cries. All of them again are uttering frightful cries of Paka, Paka, and are perching upon the tops of standards for the destruction of the kings. Vicious elephants, trembling all over, are running hither and thither, urinating and ejecting excreta. The horses are all melancholy, while the elephants are resorting to the water. Hearing all this, let that be done which is suitable, so that, O Bharata, the world may not be depopulated. Vaisampayana continued, hearing these words of his father, Dhritarashtra said, I think all this hath been ordained of old. A great slaughter of human beings will take place. If the kings die in battle observing the duties of the Kshatriya order, they will then, attaining to the regions reserved for heroes, obtain only happiness. These tigers among men, casting away their lives in great battle, will win fame in this and great bliss forever in the next world. Vaisampayana continued, O best of kings, thus addressed by his son Dhritarashtra, that prince of poets, the Muni, Vyasa, concentrated his mind in supreme yoga. Having contemplated for only a short space of time, Vyasa once more said, without doubt, O King of kings, it is time that destroyeth the universe. It is time also that createth the worlds. There is nothing here that is eternal. Show the path of righteousness to the Kurus, to thy kinsmen, relatives, and friends. thou art competent to restrain them. The slaughter of kinsmen hath been said to be sinful. Do not do that which is disagreeable to me. O King, death himself hath been born in the shape of thy son. Slaughter is never applauded in the Vedas. It can never be beneficial. The usages of one's race are as one's own body. Those usages slay him that destroyeth them. For the destruction of this race and of those kings of the earth it is time that maketh thee deviate into the wrong path like one in distress, although thou art competent to walk along the path of righteousness. O King, in the shape of thy kingdom hath calamity come to thee. Thy virtue is sustaining a very great diminution. 26 Show what righteousness is unto thy sons. O thou that art invincible, of what value is that kingdom to thee which bringeth sin to thee? Take care of thy good name, thy virtue, and thy fame. Thou wilt then win heaven. Let the Pandavas have the kingdom, and let the Kauravas have peace. While that best of Brahmanas was saying these words in a sorrowful tone, Dhritarashtra, the son of Ambika, accomplished in speech, once more addressed him, saying, My knowledge of life and death is similar to thine. The truth is known to me as regards these. Man, however, in what concerns his own interests, is deprived of judgment. O sire, know me to be one who is an ordinary person. Of immeasurable power thou art. I pray thee to extend thine towards us. Of soul under complete control, thou art our refuge and instructor. My sons are not obedient to me, O great Rishi. My understanding too is not inclined to commit sin. 27 Thou art the cause of the fame, the achievements, and the inclination for virtue, of the Bharatas. Thou art the reverend grandsire of both the Kurus and the Pandavas. Vyasa said, O royal son of Vichitravirya, tell me freely what is in thy mind. I will remove thy doubts. Dhritarashtra said, O holy one, I desire to hear from thee of all those indications that happen and those that become victorious in battle. Vyasa said, The sacred fire assumes a cheerful radiance. Its light ascends upwards. Its flame bends towards the right. It blazes up without being smoky. The libations poured on it yield a fragrant scent. It is said that these are the indications of future success. The conches and cymbals yield sounds that are deep and loud. The sun as well as the moon gives pure rays. It is said that these are the indications of future success. Crows, whether stationary or on their wings, utter cries that are agreeable. They again that are behind, urge the warriors to advance, while they that are ahead, forbid all advance. 28 Where vultures, swans, parrots, cranes, and woodpeckers utter delightful cries, and wheel towards the right, the Brahmanas say that their victory in battle is certain. They whose divisions, in consequence of ornaments, coats of mail, and standards, or the melodious neigh of their steeds, become resplendent and incapable of being gazed at, always conquer their foes. They who utter cheerful shouts, those warriors, O Bharata, whose energies are not damped and whose garlands do not fade, always cross the ocean of battle. They who utter cheerful shouts having penetrated into the divisions of the foe, who utter even kind words, 29 to the enemy, and who, before striking, forewarn the foe, win victory. The objects of hearing, vision, taste, touch, and smell, without undergoing any change for the worse, become auspicious. This also is another indication of a victorious army, viz., there is joy among the combatants at all time. This also is another indication of success, viz., the winds that blow, the clouds, and the birds, all become favorable, while the clouds, so favorable, and the rainbows drop beneficial showers. These, O King, are the indications of armies to be crowned with victory, while, O monarch, all these become otherwise in the case of those that are about to be destroyed. Whether the army be small or large, cheerfulness, as an attribute of the combatants, is said to be a certain indication of victory. One soldier, struck with panic, can cause even a large army to take fright and fly. And when an army, struck with panic, takes to flight, it causes even heroic warriors to take fright. If a large army is once broken and put to rout, it cannot, like a herd of deer disordered in fright or a mighty current of water, be easily checked. If a large army is once routed, it is incapable of being rallied. On the other hand, beholding it broken, even those well skilled in battle, O Bharata, become heartless. Beholding soldiers struck with fear and flying, the panic spreads in other directions, and soon, O king, the whole army is broken and flies in all directions. And when an army is routed, even brave leaders, O king, at the head of large divisions consisting of the 4 kinds of forces, are incapable of rallying them. An intelligent man, always exerting himself with activity, should strive to win success by the aid of means. It is said that that success which is won by negotiation and other means is the very best. That which is achieved by producing disunion among the foe is indifferent, while that success, O king, which is won by battle, is the worst. In battle are many evils, the initial one, as it is said, being slaughter. Even 50 brave men who know one another, who are underbreast, who are free from family ties, and who are firmly resolved, can crush a large army. Even 5, 6, 7 men, who are unretreating, win victory. Vinata's son Garuda, O Bharata, beholding even a large concourse of birds, asketh not the aid of many followers to vanquish them. The strength and number, therefore, of an army is not always the cause of victory. Victory is uncertain. It depends on chance. Even they that become victorious have to sustain loss. Section 4. Vaisampayana said, having said these words unto Dhritarashtra, Vyasa took his departure. And Dhritarashtra also, having heard those words, began to reflect in silence. And having reflected for only a short space of time, he began to sigh repeatedly. And, soon, O bull of Bharata's race, the king asked Sanjaya of soul worthy of praise, saying, O Sanjaya, these kings, these lords of earth, so brave and taking delight in battle, are for smiting one another with weapons of diverse kinds, being prepared to lay down their very lives for the sake of earth. Incapable of being restrained, they are, indeed, smiting one another for increasing the population of Yama's domain. Desirous of prosperity connected with the possession of earth, they are incapable of bearing one another. I, therefore, think that earth must be possessed of many attributes. Tell me all these, O Sanjaya. Many thousands, many millions, many tens of millions, many hundreds of millions, heroic men have come together at Kurujangala. I desire to hear, O Sanjaya, with accurate details, about the situation and dimensions of those countries and cities from which they have come. Through the potency of that regenerate Rishi Vyasa of immeasurable energy, thou art endued with a lamp of celestial perception and the eye of knowledge. Sanjaya said, O thou of great wisdom, I will recount to thee the merits of earth according to my knowledge. Behold them with thy eye of wisdom. I bow to thee, O bull of Bharata's race. Creatures in this world are of 2 kinds, mobile and immobile. Mobile creatures are of 3 kinds according to their birth, viz., viviparous, and those engendered by heat and damp. Of mobile creatures, O king, the foremost are certainly those called viviparous. Of viviparous creatures the foremost are men and animals. Animals, O king, of diverse forms, are of 14 species. 7 have their abodes in the woods, and 7 of these are domestic. Lions, tigers, boars, buffaloes, and elephants, as also bears and apes, are, O king, regarded as wild. Kine, goats, sheep, men, horses, mules, and asses, these 7 amongst animals are reckoned as domestic by the learned. These 14, O king, complete the tale of domestic and wild animals, mentioned, O Lord of earth, in the Vedas, and on which the sacrifices rest. Of creatures that are domestic, men are foremost, while lions are the foremost of those that have their abode in the woods. All creatures support their life by living upon one another. Vegetables are said to be immobile, and they are of 4 species, viz. Trees, shrubs, creepers, creeping plants existing for only a year, and all stemless plants of the grass species. 30 of mobile and immobile creatures, there are thus 1 less 20, and as regards their universal constituents, there are 5. 24 in all. These are described as Gayatri, Brahma, as is well known to all. 31 He who knows these truly to be the sacred Gayatri, possessed of every virtue, is not liable, O best of the Bharatas, to destruction in this world. Everything springeth from the earth, and everything, when destroyed, mergeth into the earth. The earth is the stay and refuge of all creatures, and the earth is eternal. He that hath the earth hath the entire universe with its mobile and immobile population. It is for this that, longing for the possession of the earth, kings slay one another. Section V. Dhritarashtra said, the names of rivers and mountains, O Sanjaya, as also of provinces, and all other things resting on the earth, and their dimensions, O thou that art acquainted with the measures of things of the earth in its entirety, and the forests, O Sanjaya, recount to me in detail. Apostrophe. Sanjaya said, O great king, all things in the universe, in consequence of the presence, in them, of the 5 elements, have been said to be equal by the wise. These elements are space, air, fire, water, and earth. Their respective attributes are sound, touch, vision, taste, and scent. Every one of these elements possesses, in addition to what is especially its own, the attribute or attributes of that or of those coming before it. The earth, therefore, is the foremost of them all, possessing as it does the attributes of all the other 4, besides what is specially its own, as said by rishis acquainted with truth. 32 There are 4 attributes, O king, in water. Scent does not exist in it. Fire has 3 attributes, viz. Sound, touch, and vision. Sound and the touch belong to air, while space has sound alone. These 5 attributes, O king, exist, in this way, in the 5 principal elements depending on which all creatures in the universe exist. They exist separately and independently when there is homogeneity in the universe. 33 When, however, these do not exist in their natural state but with one another, then creatures spring into life, furnished with bodies. This is never otherwise. The elements are destroyed, in the order of the one succeeding, merging into the one that precedes, and they spring also into existence, one arising from the one before it. 34 All of these are immeasurable, their forms being Brahma itself. In the universe are seen creatures consisting of the 5 elements. Men endeavour to ascertain their proportions by exercising their reason. Those matters, however, that are inconceivable, should never be sought to be solved by reason. That which is above human nature is an indication of the inconceivable. O son of Kuru's race, I will, however, describe to thee the island called Sudasana. This island, O king, is circular and of the form of a wheel. It is covered with rivers and other pieces of water, and with mountains looking like masses of clouds, and with cities and many delightful provinces. It is also full of trees furnished with flowers and fruits, and with crops of diverse kinds and other wealth. And it is surrounded on all sides with the salt ocean. As a person can see his own face in a mirror, even so is the island called Sudasana seen in the lunar disk. 2 of its parts seem to be a peepal tree, while 2 others look like a large hare. It is surrounded on all sides with an assemblage of every kind of deciduous plants. Besides these portions, the rest is all water. What remains I will describe to thee shortly. The rest I will speak of afterwards. Listen now to this that I describe in brief. 35. Section Vi. Dhritarashtra said, Thou art intelligent, O Sanjaya, and acquainted with the truth about everything. Thou hast duly given a description of the island in brief. Tell us now of the island in detail. Tell us now of the dimension of the expanse of land that lies in the portion looking like a hair. Thou mayst then speak of the portion resembling peepal tree. Vaisampayana said, thus addressed by the king, Sanjaya began to say. Sanjaya said, stretching from east to west, are these 6 mountains that are equal 36 and that extend from the eastern to the western ocean. They are Himavat, Himakata, that best of mountains called Nishada, Nila abounding with stones of lapis lazuli, sweater white as the moon, and the mountains called Seringavat composed of all kinds of metals. 37. These are the 6 mountains, O king, which are always the resorts of siddhas and charanas. The space lying between each of these measures 1,000 yojanas, and thereon are many delightful kingdoms. And these divisions are called Vashas, O Bharata. In all those kingdoms reside creatures of diverse species. This, the land where we are, is in the Vashor that is called after Bharata. Next to it, northwards, is the Vashor called after Himavat. The land that is beyond Himakata is called Hari Vashor. South of the Nila range and on the north of the Nishada is a mountain, O king, called Malyavat that stretches from east to west. Beyond Malyavat northwards is the mountain called Gandhamadana. 38. Between these two, viz., Malyavat and Gandhamadana, is a globular mountain called Meru made of gold. Effulgent as the morning sun, it is like fire without smoke. 39. It is 84,000 yojanas high, and, O king, its depth also is 84 yojanas. It standeth bearing the worlds above, below and transversely. Besides Meru are situated, O Lord, these 4 islands, viz., Bhadraswa, and Kachimala, and Jamvadvipa, otherwise called Bharata, and Utakuru, which is the abode of persons who have achieved the merit of righteousness. The bird Samaka, the son of Suparna, beholding that all the birds on Meru were of golden plumage, reflected that he should leave that mountain inasmuch as there was no difference between the good, middling, and bad birds. The foremost of luminaries, the sun, always circumambulates Meru, as also the moon with his attendant constellation, and the wind god too. The mountain, O king, is endued with celestial fruits and flowers, and it is covered all over with mansions made of furnished gold. There, on that mountain, O king, the celestials, the Gandhavas, the Asuras, and the Rakshasas, accompanied by the tribes of Apsaras, always sport. The Brahman, and Rudra, and also Sakra the chief of the celestials, assembled together, performed diverse kinds of sacrifices with plentiful gifts. Tamveru, and Narada, and Viswavasu, and the Hahus and the Huas, repairing thither, adored the foremost of the celestials with diverse hymns. The high-souled 7 rishis, and Kasyapa the lord of creatures, repair thither, blessed be thou, on every Bhava day. 40. Upon the summit of that mountain, Usanas, otherwise called the poet, sporteth with the deities, his disciples. 41. The jewels and gems that we see, and all the mountains abounding in precious stones are of Meru. Therefrom the 4th part is enjoyed by the holy Kuvera. Only a 16th part of that wealth he giveth unto men. On the northern side of Meru is a delightful and excellent forest of Kankaras, covered with the flowers of every season. 42. And occupying a range of hills. There the illustrious Pasupati himself, the creator of all things, surrounded by his celestial attendants and accompanied by him, sporteth bearing a chain of Kantara flowers on his neck, reaching down to his feet, and blazing with radiance, with his 3 eyes resembling 3 risen suns. Him Siddhas truthful in speech, of excellent vows and austere ascetic penances, can behold. Indeed, Mahabharata is incapable of being seen by persons of wicked conduct. From the summit of that mountain, like a stream of milk, O ruler of men, the sacred and auspicious Ganga, otherwise called Bhagirati, adored by the most righteous, of universal form and immeasurable, and issuing out with terrific noise, falleth with impetuous force on the delightful lake of Chandramas. 43 Indeed that sacred lake, like an ocean, hath been formed by Ganga herself. While leaping from the mountains, Ganga, incapable of being supported by even the mountains, was held for 100,000 years by the bearer of Pinaka on his head. 44 On the western side of Mru, O king, is Kachimala. 45 And there also is Jamvukanda. Both are great seats of humanity, O king. 46 There, O Bharata, the measure of human life is 10,000 years. The men are all of a golden complexion, and the women are like apsaras. And all the residents are without sickness, without sorrow, and always cheerful. The men born there are of the effulgence of melted gold. On the summits of Gandamadana, Kuvara the lord of the Gaikas, with many Rakshasas and accompanied by tribes of apsaras, passeth his time in joy. Besides Gandamadana there are many smaller mountains and hills. The measure of human life there is 11,000 years. There, O king, the men are cheerful, and endued with great energy and great strength, and the women are all of the complexion of the lotus and highly beautiful. Beyond Nila is the Vasha called Sweta. Beyond Swetu is the Vasha called Haranyaka. Beyond Haranyaka is the Vasha called Eravatu, covered with provinces. The last Vasha in their extreme north and Bharata's Vasha in their extreme south are both, O king, of the form of a bow. These 5 Vashas, viz., Sweta, Haranyaka, Elavrita, Hari Vasha, and Haimavat Vasha, are in the middle, of which Elavrita exists in the very middle of all. Amongst these 7 Vashas, the 5 already mentioned and Eravata and Bharata, that which is further north excels the one to its immediate south in respect of these attributes, viz., the period of life, stature, health, righteousness, pleasure, and profit. In these Vashas, O Bharata, creatures, though of a diverse species, yet live together. Thus, O king, is earth covered with mountains. The huge mountains of Himakata are otherwise called Kailasa. There, O king, Vaisravana passeth his time in joy with his Gaikas. Immediately to the north of Kailasa and near the mountains of Menaka there is a huge and beautiful mountain called Manamaya, endued with golden summits. Beside this mountain is a large, beautiful, crystal and delightful lake called Vendusaras with golden sands on its beach. The king Bhagirata, beholding Ganga, since called after his own name, resided for many years. There may be seen innumerable sacrificial stakes made of gems, and chaitya tree made of gold. It was there that he with 1,000 eyes and great fame won, ascetic, success by performing sacrifices. The Lord of all creatures, the eternal creator of all the worlds, endued with supreme energy, surrounded by his ghostly attendants, is adored. The Nara and Narayana, Brahman, and Manu, and Stanu as the 5th, are ever present. And there the celestial stream Ganga, having 3 currents, 47 issuing out of the region of Brahman, first showed herself, and then dividing herself into 7 streams, became Vaswakasara, Nalini, the sin-cleansing Saraswati, Jamvunadi, Sita, Ganga, and Sindhu as the 7th. The Supreme Lord hath, himself, made the arrangement with reference to that inconceivable and celestial stream. It is there that 48 sacrifices have been performed, by gods and rishis, on 1,000 occasions after the end of the Yuga, when creation begins. As regards the Saraswati, in some parts of her course, she becometh visible and in some parts not so. This celestial sevenfold Ganga is widely known over the three worlds. Rakshasas reside on Himavat, Gayakas on Himakota, and serpents and nagas on Nishada, and ascetics on Gokana. The Swetu mountains are said to be the abode of the celestial and the Asuras. The Gandharvas always reside on Nishadas, and the regenerate Rishis on Nila. The mountains of Sringavat also are regarded as the resort of the celestials. These then, O great king, are the 7 Varshas of the world as they are divided. Diverse creatures, mobile 49 and immobile, are placed in them all. Diverse kinds of prosperity, both providential and human, are noticeable in them. They are incapable of being counted. Those desirous, however, of their own good believe all this. I have now told thee of that delightful region of land, of the form of a hare about which thou hadst asked me. At the extremities of that region are the 2 Varshas, viz., one on the north and the other on the south. Those 2 also have now been told to thee. Then again the 2 islands Nagadwipa and Kasyapatwipa are the 2 ears of this region of the form of a hare. The beautiful mountains of Malia, O king, having rocks like plates of copper, form another, prominent, part of Jamvadvipa that having its shape resembling a hare. Section 7. Dhritarashtra said, Tell me, O Sanjaya, thou of great intelligence, of the regions to the north and the east side of Meru, as also of the mountains of Malyavat, in detail. 50. Sanjaya said, on the south of the Nila mountain and the northern side of Meru are the sacred northern Kuras, O king, which are the residents of the Siddhas. The trees that bear sweet fruits, and are always covered with fruits and flowers. All the flowers there are fragrant, and the fruits of excellent taste. Some of the trees, again, O king, yield fruits according to the will of the plucker. There are again some other trees, O king, that are called milk-yielding. These always yield milk and the 6 different kinds of food of the taste of Amrita itself. Those trees also yield cloths, and in their fruits are ornaments for the use of man. The entire land abounds with fine golden sands. A portion of the region there, extremely delightful, is seen to be possessed of the radiance of the ruby or diamond, or of the lapis lazuli or other jewels and gems. 51. All the seasons there are agreeable, and nowhere does the land become miry, O king. The tanks are charming, delicious, and full of crystal water. The men born there have dropped from the world of the celestials. 52. All are of pure birth, and all are extremely handsome in appearance. That winds of opposite sexes are born, and the women resemble Apsaras in beauty. They drink the milk, sweet as Amrita, of those milk-yielding trees, already mentioned. And the twins born there, of opposite sexes, grow up equally. Both possessed of equal beauty, both endued with similar virtues, and both equally dressed. Both grow up in love, O monarch, like a couple of Chakrabarkas. The people of that country are free from illness and are always cheerful. 10,100 years they live, O king, and never abandon one another. A class of birds called Barunda, furnished with sharp beaks and possessed of great strength, take them up when dead and throw them into mountain caves. I have now described to thee, O king, the northern Kuras briefly. I will now describe to thee the eastern side of Mruduli. Of all the regions there, the foremost, O king, is called Bhadraswa, where there is a large forest of Bhadrasalas, as also a huge tree called Glimra. This Glimra, O king, is always graced with fruits and flowers. That tree again is a yojana in height and is adored by Siddhas 53 and the Charanas. The men there are all of a white complexion, endued with great energy, and possessed of great strength. Their women are of the complexion of lilies, very beautiful, and agreeable to sight. Possessed of radiance of the moon, 54, and white as the moon, their faces are as the full moon. Their bodies again are as cool as the rays of the moon, and they are all accomplished in singing and dancing. The period of human life there, O bull of the Bharata's race, is 10,000 years. Drinking the juice of the Klunra, they continue youthful forever. On the south of Nila and the north of Nishada, there is a huge jambu tree that is eternal. Adored by the Siddhas and Charanas, that sacred tree granteth every wish. After the name of that tree this division hath ever been called Jamvadweepa. O bull of Bharata race, 1,100 yojanas is the height of that prince of trees, which touches the very heavens, O king of men. 2,500 cubits measure the circumference of a fruit of that tree which bursts when ripe. In falling upon the earth these fruits make a loud noise, and then pour out, O king, a silvery juice on the ground. That juice of the jambu, becoming, O king, a river, and passing circuitously round Mru, cometh to their region of the northern Kuras. If the juice of that fruit is quaffed, it conduces to peace of mind. No thirst is felt ever after, O king. Decrepitude never weakens them. And there are species of gold called jamvunada and used for celestial ornaments, very brilliant and like the complexion of Indragopika insects, is produced. The men born there are of the complexion of the morning sun. On the summit of Malyavat is always seen, O bull of Bharata's race, the fire called Samvitaka, which blazeth forth at the end of the Yuga for the destruction of the universe. On Malyavat's summit towards the east are many small mountains, and Malyavat, O king, measures 11,055 yojanas. The men born there are of the complexion of gold. And they are all fallen from the region of Brahman and Aratras of Brahma. They undergo the severest of ascetic austerities, and their vital seed is drawn up. For the protection of creatures they all enter the sun. Numbering 66,000, they proceed in advance of Aruna, surrounding the sun. Heated with the sun's rays for 66,000 years, they then enter the lunar disk. Section 8. Dhritarashtra said, Tell me truly, O Sanjaya, the names of all the Vashas, and of all the mountains, and also of all those that dwell on those mountains. Sanjaya said, On the south of Sweta and the north of Nishada is the Vasha, called Romanaka. The men that are born there are all of white complexion, of a good parentage, and handsome features. And the men born there are also all without enemies. And they live, O king, for 11,500 years, being ever of cheerful hearts. On the south of Nishada is the Vasha called Haramaya, where is the river called Haranwati. There, O king, liveth that foremost of birds named Garuda. And the people there, O monarch, are all followers of the Yakshas, wealthy, and of handsome features. And, O king, the men there are endued with great strength and of cheerful hearts. And they live for 12,500 years, O king, which is the measure of their lives. The mountains of Sringavat, 56, O ruler of men, have 3 beautiful summits. One of these is made of jewels and gems, another is very wonderful, being made of all kinds of gems and adorned with palatial mansions. Though the self-luminous lady named Sandili always liveth. On the north of Sringavat and up to the margin of the sea, O king, the Vasha called Eravat. And because this jewelled mountain is there, therefore is this Vasha superior to all. The sun giveth no heat there, and men are not subject to decay. And the moon there, with the stars, becoming the only source of light, covereth the firmament. Possessing the radiance and complexion of the lotus, and endues with eyes that resemble lotus petals, the men born there have the fragrance of the lotus. With winkless eyes, and agreeable scent, emanating from their bodies. They go without food and have their senses under control. They are all fallen from the region of the celestials, and are all, O king, without sin of any kind. And they live, O monarch, for 13,000 years, that being, O best of the Bharatas, the measure of their lives. And so on the north of the Milky Ocean, the Lord Hari of unlimited puissance dwelleth on his car made of gold. That vehicle is endued with 8 wheels, with numerous supernatural creatures stationed on it, and having the speed of the mind. And its complexion is that of fire, and it is endued with mighty energy and adorned with Jamvunada gold. He is the Lord of all creatures, and is possessed, O bull of Bharata's race, of every kind of prosperity. In him the universe merges, when dissolution comes, and from him it again emanates, when the creative desire seizes him. He is the actor, and it is he that makes all others act. He, O monarch, is earth, water, space, air, and fire. He is sacrifices self unto all creatures, and fire is his mouth. Vaisampayana continued. The high-souled king Dhritarashtra, thus addressed by Sanjaya, became, O monarch, absorbed in meditation about his sons. Endued with great energy, he then, having reflected, said these words, without doubt, O Suta's son, it is time that destroyeth the universe, and it is time that again createth everything. Nothing here is eternal. It is Nara and Narayana, endued with omniscience, that destroyeth all creatures. 57 The gods speak of him as Vaikuntha, of immeasurable puissance, while men call him Vishnu, one that pervadeth the universe. Section 9. Dhritarashtra said, Tell me truly, O Sanjaya, of this Vashur that is called after Bharata, where this senseless force hath been collected, in respect of which this my son Duryodhana hath been so very covetous, which the sons of Bandu also are desirous of obtaining, and in which my mind too sinketh. Oh, tell me this, for thou art, in my judgment, endued with intelligence. Sanjaya said, Listen to me, O king. The sons of Pandu are not covetous about this country. On the other hand, it is Duryodhana that is covetous, and Sakuni the son of Shivala, as also many other Kshatriyas who are rulers of the provinces, who being covetous of this country are not able to bear one another. I will now tell thee, O thou of Bharata's race, of the tract of land known by Bharata's name. This land is the beloved one of Indra, and, O thou of Bharata's race, this land, O monarch, that is called after Bharata, is also the beloved land of Manu, the son of Vivaswat, of Prithu, of Vanya, of the Haisaldikshwaku, of Yayati, of Amvirasha, of Mandathri, of Nuasha, of Machakanda, of Sivi, the son of Uznara, of Rishava, of Ila, of King Riga, of Guzika, O invincible one, of the Haisaldgadi, of Somaka, O irrepressible one, and of Dilipa, and also, O monarch, of many other mighty Kshatriyas. I will now, O chastiser of foes, describe to thee that country as I have heard of it. Listen to me, O king, as I speak of what thou hast asked me. Mahendra, Bilaya, Sayaya, Saktamat, Rakshavat, Vindhya, and Parupatra, these 7 are the Kala mountains 58, of Bharavashur. Besides these, O king, there are thousands of mountains that are unknown, of hard make, huge, and having excellent valleys. Besides these there are many other smaller mountains inhabited by barbarous tribes. Aryans and Malechas, O Kauravya, and many races, O Lord, mixed of the 2 elements, drink the waters of the following rivers, viz., magnificent Ganga, Sindhu, and Saraswati, of Godavari, and Narmada, and the large river called Yamuna, of Drishadwati, and Vipapa, and Vipasa, and Sthilavaluka, of the river Vetravati, and that other one called Krishnavena, of Iravati, and Vitasta, and Payasini, and Devaka, of Vedasmrita and Vedavati, and Triadiva, and Ikshumilavi 59 of Karashini, and Chitravaha, and the river called Chitrasana, of Gamati, and Tutapada, and the large river called Gandaki 60, of Kausiki, and Nischidra, and Kirtia, and Nichita, and Lohatarini 61 of Rashasi and Satakama, and also Sarayu, of Chamanwati, and Vetravati 62, and Hasty Soma, and Dissa, of the river called Saravati, and Vena, and Bimariti, of Kavari, and Chuluka, and Vina, and Satavala, of Nivara, and Mala, and Suprayoga, O king, of Pavitra, and Kandla, and Rajani, and Paramalini, of Purvabhairama, and Vira, and Bhima, and Ogavati, of Palasini, and Papahara, and Mahendra, and Patalavati, of Karashini, and Isini, and the large river Kuzak Era, of Makari, and Pravara, and Mena, and Hima, and Rutavati, of Pravati, and Dainashana, and Savia, and Karpi, O Bharata, of Sadanira, and Adrishaya, and the mighty stream Kuzadara, of Sadakanta, and Shiva, and Viravati, of Vatsu, and Shavastu, and Kampana with Haranwati, of Vara, and the mighty river Panchami, of Rathachidara, and Yotarata, and Viswamitra, and Kapanjala, of Apendra, and Vahila, and Kakira, and Madhuvahini, of Vinadi, and Pinjala, and Vena, and the great river Pangavana, of Vidiza, and Krishnavena, and Damra, and Kapla, of Salu, and Shavama, the Vedaswa, and the mighty river Haas River, of Saira, and Paskala, and the river Bharadwaji, of the river Kausiki, and Suna, and Chandrama, of Durgamantresla, and Brahmavodaya, and Vrihadvati, of Yakshaw, and Rawi, and Yamvunadi, of Sunaza and Damaza, and Dasi, and Vesa, and Varana, and Asa, of Neela, and Rimati, and the mighty river Parnasa, of Pomasi, and Vrishaba, and Brahmamedaya, and Vrihadani. These and many other large rivers, O king, such as Sadnurmaya and Krishna, and Mandaga, and Mandavahini, and Mahagri, and Daga, O Bharata, and Chitrapala, Chitraratha, and Manjala, and Vahini, and Mandakini, and Vaitarani, and Kosa, and Mahanadi, and Saktamati, and Ananga, and Pushpavani, and Utpalavati, and Lohatia, Karatoya, and Vrishasabaya, and Kumari, and Rishikalya, and Marisha, and Saraswati, and Mandakini, and Sapania, Savasanga, O Bharata, are all mothers of the universe and productive of great merit. Besides these, there are rivers, by hundreds and thousands, that are not known, by names. I have now recounted to thee, O king, all the rivers as far as I remember. After this, listen to the names of the provinces as I mention them. They are the Kurupanchalas, the Salwas, the Madryas, the Jandlas, the Surasana, the Kalingas, the Vodas, the Malas, the Matsyas, the Sorvalyas, the Kuntalas, the Kazikoslas, the Chedis, the Karashas, the Bijas, the Sintas, the Pulindikas, the Uttamas, the Dasanas, the Meklas, the Utklas, the Panchalas, the Kausajas, the Nikaprishtas, Tarandaras, the Sodas, the Madrabujingas, the Kasis, and the further Kasis, the Jaith Auras, the Kukaras, O Bharata, the Kuntis, the Avantas, and the further Kuntis, the Gamentas, the Mandakas, the Shandas, the Vidarbhas, the Rupavahikas, the Aswakas, the Panjurashtras, the Goparashtras, and the Karatyas, the Adrijayas, the Kuladyas, the Malarashtras, the Keralas, the Varatrasyas, the Apavakas, the Chakras, the Vaikadapas, the Sakas, the Vidas, the Magdas, the Swakshas, the Malas, the Vijayas, the Angas, the Vangas, the Kalingas, the Yakrilimans, the Malas, the Sedelas, the Pranradas, the Mahikas, the Sasikas, the Valakas, the Vatadanas, the Abhiras, the Kalajashakas, the Aparantas, the Parantas, the Panabas, the Charmamandalas, the Atavasagaras, the Mahabhutas, O sire, the Apavritas, the Anupavritas, the Zurashitras, Kikayas, the Kutas, the Makas, the Kakshas, the Samudranishkatas, the Andhras, and, O king, many hilly tribes, and many tribes residing on lands laying at the foot of the hills, and the Angamalajas, and the Manavanjakas, the Pravishyas, and the Bhargavas, O king, the Pandras, the Bhagas, the Kairatas, the Sudashnas, and the Yaminas, the Sakas, the Nishadas, the Anatas, the Nritas, the Duglas, the Pratimasyas, the Kuntalas, and the Kusalas, the Tiragras, the Ajakas, the Kanyakaganas, the Talaparas, the Samiras, the Madhumatas, the Sukandakas, the Kasmiras, the Sandhusoviras, the Gandavas, and the Darsakas, the Apaisaras, the Utalas, the Sayavalas, and the Valakas, the Davis, the Vanavadavas, the Vatakas, the Amarathas, and the Uragas, the Vahuvadas, the Kauravyas, the Sudamanas, the Sumalikas, the Vadras, the Karashakas, the Kalindas, and the Apatyakas, the Vatyanas, the Ramanas, and the Kusavandas, the Kakas, the Gopalkakas, the Kuruvanakas, the Kairatas, the Varvasas, the Siddhas, the Vedas, and the Tamraliptas, the Andhras, the Pondras, the Saisakatas, and the Parvatiyas, O sire. There are other kingdoms, O bull of Bharata's race, in the south. They are the Dravidas, the Keralas, the Prakyas, the Mashikas, and the Vanavashikas, the Karnatakas, the Mahashakas, the Vaikalpas, and also the Mashhakas, the Jilikas, the Kuntalas, the Sondridas, and the Nilakananas, the Kankatakas, the Kalas, and the Malavyakas, the Samangas, the Kanakas, the Kakaras, and the Angaramarishas, the Samangas, the Karakas, the Kukaras, the Angaras, the Marishas, the Dwajinis, the Utsavas, the Sankitas, the Trigatas, and the Salasana, the Vakas, the Kokarakas, the Pashtras, and the Lamavagavasas, the Vendayakilikas, the Pulindas, and the Voltlas, the Malavas, the Valavas, the further Valavas, the Kulindas, the Kalavas, the Kantokas, and the Karatas, the Mrishakas, the Tanavalas, the Saniyas, the Alidas, the Pasivatas, the Tanayas, and the Sulanyas, the Rishikas, the Vidarbhas, the Karkas, the Tanganas, and the further Tanganas. Among the tribes of the north are the Malechas, and the Kliras, O best of the Bharatas, the Yavanas, the Chinas, the Kamvojas, the Dharanas, and many Mlecha tribes, the Sukritvigas, the Kulathas, the Hanas, and the Parasikas, the Ramanas, and the Dasamalikas. These countries are, besides, the abodes of many Kshatriya, Vaisya, and Sudra tribes. Then again there are the Sudra Abhiras, the Dardas, the Kasmiras, and the Patas, the Kasiras, the Atrias, the Bharadwajas, the Stanapashikas, the Poshakas, the Kalingas, and diverse tribes of Kairatas, the Tomaras, the Hanzamagas, and the Karamanjakas. These and other kingdoms are on the east and on the north. O Lord, alluding to them briefly, I have told thee all. Earth, if its resources are properly developed according to its qualities and prowess, is like an ever-yielding 63 cow, from which the threefold fruits of virtue, profit, and pleasure may be milked. Brave kings conversant with virtue and profit have become covetous of earth. Endued with activity, they would even cast away their lives in battle, from hunger of wealth. Earth is certainly the refuge of creatures endued with celestial bodies, as also of creatures endued with human bodies. 64 Desirous of enjoying earth, the kings, O chief of the Bharatas, have become like dogs that snatch meat from one another. Their ambition is unbounded, knowing no gratification. 65 It is for this that the Kuras and the Pandavas are striving for possession of earth, by negotiation, disunion, gift, and battle, O Bharata. If earth be well looked after, it becometh the father, mother, children, firmament, and heaven, of all creatures, O bull among men. Section X. Dhritarashtra said, Tell me, O Sanjaya, of the period of life, the strength, the good and bad things, the future, past and present, of the residents, O Suta, of this Varsho of Bharata, and of the Himavat Varsho, as also of Hari Varsho, in detail. Sanjaya said, O bull of Bharata's race, 4 yugas set in Bharata's Varsho, viz., Krita, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. The yuga that sets in first is Krita, O Lord. After the expiry of Krita comes Treta, after expiry of Treta comes Dwapara, and after that last of all, sets in Kali. 4,000 years, O best of the Kuras, are reckoned as the measure of life, O best of kings, in the Krita epoch. 3,000 years is the period in Treta, O ruler of men. At present in Dwapara, persons live on earth for 2,000 years. In Kali, however, O bull of Bharata's race, there is no fixed limit of life's measure, so much that men die while in the womb, as also soon after birth. In the Krita age, O king, men are born and beget children, by hundreds and thousands, that are of great strength and great power, endued with the attributes of great wisdom, and possessed of wealth and handsome features. In that age are born and begotten munis endued with wealth of asceticism, capable of great exertion, possessed of high souls, and virtuous, and truthful in speech. The Kshatriyas also, born in that age, are of agreeable features, able-bodied, possessed of great energy, accomplished in the use of the bow, highly skilled in battle, and exceedingly brave. In the Treta age, O king, all the Kshatriya kings were emperors ruling from sea to sea. In Treta are begotten brave Kshatriyas not subject to anyone, endued with long lives, possessed of heroism, and wielding the bow in battle with great skill. When Dwapara sets in, O king, all their 4 orders born become capable of great exertion, endued with great energy, and desirous of conquering one another. The men born in Kali, O king, are endued with little energy, highly wrathful, covetous, and untruthful. Jealousy, pride, anger, deception, malice, and covetousness, O Bharata, are the attributes of creatures in the Kali age. The portion that remains, O king, of this the Dwapara age, is small, O ruler of men. The Varsho known as Himavat is superior to Brita Varsho, while Hari Varsho is superior to Hainava Varsho, in respect of all qualities. Section 11. Bhumi Parva. Dhritarashtra said, Thou hast, O Sanjaya, duly described Jamvakanda to me. Tell me now its dimensions and extent truly. Tell me also, O Sanjaya, of the extent of the ocean of Sakadwipa, and Kusadwipa, of Salmalidwipa and Crownshadwipa, truly and without leaving anything, and tell me also, O son of Gavalgani, of Rau and Soma and Surya. Sanjaya said, There are, O king, many islands, over which the earth extended. I will describe to thee, however, only 7 islands, and the moon, and the sun, and the planet, Rau, also. The Jamvu mountain, O king, extends over full 18,600 yojanas. The extent of the salt ocean is said to be twice this. That ocean is covered with many kingdoms, and is adorned with gems and corals. It is, besides, decked with many mountains that are variegated with metals of diverse kinds. Thickly peopled by Siddhas and Charanas, the ocean is circular in form. I will now tell thee truly of Sakadwipa, O Bharata. Listen to me, O son of Kuru's race, as I describe it to thee duly. That island, O ruler of men, is of twice the extent of Jamvadwipa, and the ocean also, O great king, is of twice the extent of that island. Indeed, O best of the Bharatas, Sakadwipa is surrounded on all sides by the ocean. The kingdoms there are full of righteousness, and the men there never die. How can famine take place there? The people are all endued with forgiveness and great energy. I have now, O bull of Bharata's race, given thee duly a brief description of sacred weeper. What else, O king, dost thou wish to hear? 66. Dhritarashtra said, thou hast given me, O Sanjaya, a description of sacred weeper in brief. O thou that art possessed of great wisdom, tell me now everything in detail truly. Sanjaya said, in that island, O king, there are 7 mountains that are decked with jewels and that are mines of gems, precious stones. There are many rivers also in that island. Listen to me as I recount their names. Everything there, O king, is excellent and delightful. The first of these mountains is called Meru. It is the abode of the gods, rishis, and Gandharvas. The next mountain, O king, is called Mala, stretching towards the east. It is there that the clouds are generated, and it is thence that they disperse on all sides. The next, O thou of Kuru's race, is the large mountain called Jaladhara. 67. Thence Indra daily taketh water of the best quality. It is from that water that we get showers in the season of rains, O ruler of men. Next cometh the high mountain called Rayavadaka, over which, in the firmament, hath been permanently placed the constellation called Revati. This arrangement hath been made by the grandsire himself. On the north of this, O great king, is the large mountain called Sama. It hath the splendor of newly risen clouds, is very high, beautiful, and of bright body. And since the hue of those mountains is dark, the people residing there are all dark in complexion, O king. Dhritarashtra said, a great doubt ariseth in my mind, O Sanjaya, from what thou hast said. Why, O Suta's son, would the people be of dark complexion? Sanjaya said, O great king, in all islands, O son of Kuru's race, men may be found that are fair, and those that are dark, and those also that are produced by a union of the fair and the dark races. But because the people there are all dark, therefore is that mountain called the Dark Mountain. After this, O chief of the Kurus, is the large mountain called Dagasala. And then cometh the mountain called Kizari. The breezes that blow from that mountain are all charged with odoriferous effluvia. The measure of each of these mountains is double that of the one mentioned immediately before. O thou of Kuru's race, it hath been said by the wise that there are 7 Vashas in that island. The Vasha of Meru is called Mahakasa, that of the water-giving, Balaya, is called Kumudara. The Vasha of Jaladhara is called Sakamara, while that of Rayavatak is called Kaumara, and of Sama, Manikunchana. The Vasha of Kizara is called Mandaki, and that called after the next mountain is called Mahapuman. In the midst of that island is a large tree called Saka. In height and breadth the measure of that tree is equal to that of the Jamvu tree in Jamvudweepa. And the people there always adore that tree. There in that island are many delightful provinces where Shiva is worshipped, and thither repair the Siddhas, the Charanas, and the Celestials. The people there, O king, are virtuous, and all the 4 orders, O Bharata, are devoted to their respective occupation. No instance of theft can be seen there. Freed from decrepitude and death and gifted with long life, the people there, O king, grow like rivers during the season of rains. The rivers there are full of sacred water, and Ganga herself, distributed as she hath been into various currents, is there. Sakamari, and Kumari, and Sita, and Kivaraka, and Mahanadi, O Kauravya, and the river Manijala, and Chaksas, and the river Vadganika, O thou best of the Bharatas, these and many other rivers by thousands and hundreds, all full of sacred water, are there, O perpetuator of Kuru's race, from which Vasava draweth water for showering it as rain. It is impossible to recount the names and lengths of rivers. All of them are foremost of rivers and sin cleansing. As heard by all men there, in that highland of Saka, are 4 sacred provinces. They are the Mrigas, the Masakas, the Manasas, and the Mandagas. The Mrigas for the most part are Brahmanas devoted to the occupations of their order. Amongst the Masakas are virtuous Kshatriyas granting, unto Brahmanas, every wish entertained by them. The Manasas, O king, live by following the duties of the Vaishya order. Having every wish of theirs gratified, they are also brave and firmly devoted to virtue and profit. The Mandagas are all brave Sudras of virtuous behavior. In these provinces, O monarch, there is no king, no punishment, no person that deserves to be punished. Conversant with the dictates of duty, they are all engaged in the practice of their respective duties and protect one another. This much is capable of being said of the island called Saka. This much also should be listened to about that island endues with great energy. 68. Section 12. Sanjaya said, O Kauravya, that which is heard about the islands in the north, I will recount to thee, O great king. Listen to me now. Thither in the north is the ocean whose waters are clarified butter. Then is the ocean whose waters are curds. Next cometh the ocean whose waters are wine, and then is another ocean of water. The islands, O king, are double in area of one another as they proceed further and further towards the north. And they are surrounded, O king, by these oceans. 69 In the island that is in the middle, there is a large mountain called Gora made of red arsenic. On the western island, O king, is the mountain Krishna that is the favourite abode of Narayana. The Kesava guardeth celestial gems in profusion, and thence, inclined to grace, he bestoweth happiness on creatures. Along with the kingdoms there, O king, the celestial clump of Kusa grass and Kusadweepa, and the Salmali tree in the island of Salmalika, are adored. In the Crownsha island also, the mountain called Crownsha that is a mine of all kinds of gems is, O king, always adored by all the four orders of men. There, O monarch, is the mountain called Gamenta that is huge and consists of all kinds of metals, and whereon always resideth, mingling with those that have been emancipated, the puissant Narayana, otherwise called Hari, graced with prosperity and possessed of eyes like lotus leaves. In Kusadweepa, O king of kings, there is another mountain variegated with corals and called after the name of that island itself. This mountain is inaccessible and made of gold. Possessed of great splendour, O Kauravya, there is a third mountain that is called Sumida. The sixth is called Harigiri. These are the 6 principal mountains. The intervening spaces between one another of these 6 mountains increaseth in the ratio of 1 to 2 as they proceed further and further towards the north. The first Vasho is called Odido, the second is Venumandala, the third is called Zuritha, the fourth is known by the name of Kamvala, the fifth Vasho is called Dritamat, and the 6th is named Prabhakara, the 7th Vasho is called Kapla. These are the 7 successive Vashas. In these, gods and Gandharvas, and other creatures of the universe, sport and take delight. In these Vashas the inhabitants never die. There, O king, are no robbers, nor any tribes of mlechas. All the residents are almost white in complexion, and very delicate, O king. As regards the rest of the islands, O ruler of men, I will recount all that hath been heard by me. Listen, O monarch, with an attentive mind. In the Crownsha island, O great king, there is a large mountain called Crownsha. Next to Crownsha is Vamanaka, and next to Vamanaka is Andakara. And next to Andakara, Hemti, O king, is that excellent of mountains called Mainaka. After Mainaka, O monarch, is that best of mountains called Govinda, and after Govinda, O king, is the mountain called Navida. O multiplier of thy race, the intervening spaces between one another of these mountains increaseth in the ratio of 1 to 2. I will now tell thee the countries that lie there. Listen to me as I speak of them. The region near Crownshire is called Gusala, that near Vamanica is Monongnuga. The region next to Monongnuga, O perpetuator of Kuru's race, is called Ushna. After Ushna is Pravaraka, and after Pravaraka is Andakaraka. The country after Andakaraka is named Munidasa. After Munidasa the region is called Dundubiswana, teeming with Siddhas and Charanas. The people are almost white in complexion, O king. All these countries, O monarch, are the habitations of gods and Gandharvas. In the island of Pushkara is a mountain called Pushkara that abounds with jewels and gems. There always dwelleth the divine Prajapati himself. Him all the gods and great rishis always adore with gratifying words and worship reverently, O king. Diverse gems from Jamvadvipa are used there. In all these islands, O king, Brahmacharya, truth, and self-control of the dwellers, as also their health and periods of life, are in the ratio of 1 to 2 as the islands are more and more remote, northwards. O king, the land in those islands, O Bharata, comprises but one country, for that is said to be one country in which one religion is met with. The supreme Prajapati himself, upraising the rod of chastisement, always dwelleth there, protecting those islands. He, O monarch, is the king. He is their source of bliss. He is the father, and he is the grandfather. He it is, O best of men, that protecteth all creatures there, mobile or immobile. Cooked food, O Kauravya, cometh there of itself, and the creatures eat it daily, O mighty armed one. After these regions is seen a habitation of the name of Sama. It is of a starry shape, having 4 corners, and it hath, O king, 33 mandalas. There dwell, O Kauravya, 4 princely elephants adored by all. 71 they are, O best of the Bharatas, Vamana, and Airavata, and another, and also Supratika. 72 O king, with rent cheeks and mouth. I do not venture to calculate the proportions of these 4 elephants. 73 Their length, breadth, and thickness have forever remained unascertained. There in those regions, O king, winds blow irregularly from all directions. 74 These are seized by those elephants with the tips of their trunks, which are of the complexion of the lotus and endued with great splendor and capable of drawing up everything in their way. And soon enough after seizing them they then always let them out. The winds, O king, thus let out by those respiring elephants, come over the earth, and in consequence thereof creatures draw breath and live. Dhritarashtra said, Thou hast, O Sanjaya, told me everything about the first subject very elaborately. Thou hast also indicated the positions of the islands. Tell now, O Sanjaya, about what remains. Sanjaya said, Indeed, O great king, the islands have all been described to thee. Listen now to what I truly say about the heavenly bodies and about Swabhanu, O chief of the Kauravas, as regards its dimensions. It is heard, O king, that the planet Swabhanu is globular. Its diameter is 12,000 yojanas, and its circumference, because it is very large, is 42,000 yojanas, O sinless 1,75 as said by the learned of olden times. The diameter of the moon, O king, is stated to be 11,000 yojanas. Its circumference, O chief of the Kuras, is stated to be 38,900 yojanas of the illustrious planet of cool rays. It hath been heard that the diameter of the beneficent, fast-going and light-giving sun, O thou of Kuru's race, is 10,000 yojanas, and his circumference, O king, is 35,800 miles, in consequence of his largeness, O sinless one. These are the dimensions reckoned here, O Bharata, of Akka. The planet Rahu, in consequence of his greater bulk, envelops both the sun and the moon in due times. I tell thee this in brief. With the eye of science, O great king, I have now told thee all that thou hadst asked. let peace be thine. I have now told thee about the construction of the universe as indicated in the Shastras. Therefore, O Kauravya, pacify thy son Duryodhana. 76. Having listened to this charming Bhumipava, O chief of the Bharatas, a Kshatriya becometh endued with prosperity, obtaineth fruition of all his desires, and winneth the approbation of the righteous. 77. The king who listeneth to this on days of the full moon or the new moon, carefully observing vows all the while, hath the period of his life, his fame and energy, all enhanced. His deceased sires and grandsires become gratified. Thou hast now heard of all the merits that flow from this Vashur of Bharata where we now are. Section 13. Bhagavad Gita Pava. Vaisampayana said, possessing a knowledge of the past, the present and the future, and seeing all things as if present before his eyes, the learned son of Gavalgana, O Bharata, coming quickly from the field of battle, and rushing with grief into the court, represented unto Dhritarashtra, who was plunged in thought that Bhishma the grandsire of the Bharatas had been slain. Sanjaya said, I am Sanjaya, O great king. I bow to thee, O bull of Bharata's race. Bhishma, the son of Santanu and the grandsire of the Bharatas, hath been slain. That foremost of all warriors, that grandsire of the Bharatas, hath been slain. That foremost of all warriors, that embodied energy of all bowmen, that grandsire of the Kura slayeth today on a bed of arrows. That Bhishma, O king, relying on whose energy thy son had been engaged in that match at dice, now layeth on the field of battle slain by Sikandin. That mighty car warrior who on a single car had vanquished in terrific combat at the city of Kazi all the kings of the earth mustered together, he who had fearlessly fought in battle with Rama, the son of Jamadani, he whom Jamadani's son could not slay, even hath he been today slain by Sikandin. Resembling the great Indra himself in bravery, and Himavat in firmness, like unto the ocean itself in gravity, and the earth herself in patience, that invincible warrior having arrows for his teeth, that bow for his mouth, and the sword for his tongue, that lion among men, hath today been slain by the prince of Panchala. That slayer of heroes, beholding whom when addressed for battle the mighty army of the Pandavas, unmanned by fear, used to tremble like a herd of kine when beholding a lion, alas, having protected that army of thine for 10 nights and having achieved feats exceedingly difficult of accomplishment, hath set like the sun. 78. He who like Sakra himself, scattering arrows in thousands with the utmost composure, daily slew 10,000 warriors for 10 days, even he slain by the enemy, lieth, though he deserveth it not, on the bare ground like a mighty tree broken by the wind, in consequence, O king, of thy evil counsels, O Bharata. Section 14. Dhritarashtra said, How hath Bhishma, that bull among the Kuras, been slain by Sikandin? How did my father, who resembled Vasava himself, fall down from his car? What became of my sons, O Sanjaya, when they were deprived of the mighty Bhishma who was like unto a celestial, and who led life of Brahmacharya for the sake of his father? 79. Upon the fall of the tiger among men who was endued with great wisdom, great capacity for exertion, great might and great energy, how did our warriors feel? Hearing that bull amongst the Kuras, that foremost of men, that unwavering hero is slain, great is the grief that pierceth my heart. While advancing against the foe, who followed him and who proceeded ahead, who stayed by his side, who proceeded with him, what brave combatants followed behind, protecting his rear, that tiger among car warriors, that wonderful archer, that bull among Kshatriyas, while he penetrated into the divisions of the foe. 80. While seizing the hostile ranks, what warriors opposed that slayer of the foes resembling the luminary of 1,000 rays, who spreading terror among the foe destroyed their ranks like the sun destroying darkness, and who achieved in battle amongst the ranks of Bandu's sons feats exceedingly difficult of accomplishment. How, indeed, O Sanjaya, did the Pandavas oppose in battle the son of Santanu, that accomplished and invincible warrior, when he approached them smiting, slaughtering their hostile ranks, having arrows for his teeth, and full of energy, with a bow for his wide open mouth, and with a terrible sword for his tongue, and invincible, a very tiger among men, endued with modesty, and never before vanquished. Alas, how did Kunti's son overthrow in battle that unconquered one, undeserving as he was of such a fate, 81, that fierce bowman shooting fierce shafts, stationed on his excellent car, and plucking off the heads of foes from their bodies, that warrior, irresistible as the Yuga fire, beholding whom addressed for battle the great army of the Pandavas always used to waver, mangling the hostile troops for 10 nights. Alas, that slayer of ranks hath set like the sun, having achieved feats difficult of achievement. He who, scattering like Sakra himself and inexhaustible shower of arrows, slew in battle 100 millions of warriors in 10 days, that sign of Bharata's race, now layeth, although he deserveth it not, on the bare ground, in the field of battle, deprived of life, a mighty tree uprooted by the winds, as a result of my evil counsels. Beholding Santanu's son Bhishma of terrible prowess, how indeed could the army of the Pandavas 82 succeed in smiting him there? How did the sons of Bandu battle with Bhishma? How is it, O Sanjaya, that Bhishma could not conquer when Drona liveth? When Kripa, again, was near him, and Drona's son, as Wataman, also, how could Bhishma, that foremost of smiters, be slain? How could Bhishma, who was reckoned as an Utrata and who could not be resisted by the very gods, be slain in battle by Sikandin, the prince of Panchala? He, who always regarded himself as the equal of the mighty son of Jamadani in battle, he whom Jamadani's son himself could not vanquish, he who resembled Indra himself in prowess. Alas, O Sanjaya, tell me how that hero, Bhishma, born in the race of Maharathas, was slain in battle, for without knowing all the particulars I cannot regain my equanimity. What great bowmen of my army, O Sanjaya, did not desert that hero of unfading glory? What heroic warriors, again, at Duryodhana's command, stood around that hero, for protecting him? When all the Pandavas placing Sikandin in their van advanced against Bhishma, did not all the Kuras, 83, O Sanjaya, stay by the side of that hero of unfading prowess? Hard as my heart is, surely it must be made of adamant, for it breaketh not on hearing the death of that tiger among men, viz., Bhishma. In that irresistible bull of Bharata's race, were truth, and intelligence, and policy, to an immeasurable extent. Alas, how was he slain in battle? Like unto a mighty cloud of high altitude, having the twang of his bowstring for its roar, his arrows for its raindrops, and the sound of his bow for its thunder, that hero showering his shafts on Kunti's sons with the Panchalas and the Saranjayas on their side, smote hostile car warriors like the slayer of valor smiting the Danavas, who were the heroes that resisted, like the bank resisting the surging sea, that chastiser of foes, who was a terrible ocean of arrows and weapons, an ocean in which shafts were the irresistible crocodiles and bows were the waves, an ocean that was inexhaustible, without an island, agitated and without a raft to cross it, in which maces and swords were like sharks and steeds and elephants like eddies, and foot soldiers like fishes in abundance, and the sound of conches and drums like its roar, an ocean that swallowed horses and elephants and foot soldiers quickly, an ocean that devoured hostile heroes and that seethed with wrath and energy, which constituted its Yadava fire. 84 When for Duryodhana's good, that slayer of foes, Bhishma, achieved terrible feats in battle, who were then in his van? Who were they that protected the right wheel of that warrior of immeasurable energy? Who were they that, mustering patience and energy, resisted hostile heroes from his rear? Who stationed themselves in his near front for protecting him? Who were those heroes that protected the forewheel of that brave warrior while he battled with the foe? Who were they that, stationing themselves by his left wheel, smote the Sringyas? Who were they that protected the irresistible advance ranks of his van? Who protected the wings of that warrior who hath made the last painful journey? And who, O Sanjaya, fought with hostile heroes in the general engagement? If he was protected by our heroes, and if they were protected by him, why could he not then speedily vanquish in battle the army of the Pandavas, invincible though it be? Indeed, O Sanjaya, how could the Pandavas succeed even in striking Bhishma, who was like Paramshti himself, that lord and creator of all creatures? 85 Thou tellest me, O Sanjaya, if the disappearance of that Bhishma, that tiger among men, who was our refuge and relying upon whom the Kurus were fighting with their foes, that warrior of mighty strength relying on whose energy my son had never reckoned the Pandavas, alas, how hath he been slain by the enemy? 86 In days of yore, all the gods while engaged in slaying the Danavas, sought the aid of that invincible warrior, viz., my father of high vows, that foremost of sons endued with great energy, on whose birth the world-renowned Santanu abandoned all grief, melancholy, and sorrows. How canst thou tell me, O Sanjaya, that that celebrated hero, that great refuge of all, that wise and holy personage who was devoted to the duties of his order and conversant with the truths of the Vedas and their branches, hath been slain? Accomplished in every weapon and endued with humility, gentle and with passions under full control, and possessed of great energy as he was, alas, hearing that son of Santanu slain, I regard the rest of my army as already slain. In my judgment, unrighteousness hath now become stronger than righteousness, for the sons of Bandu desire sovereignty even by killing their venerable superior. In days of yore, Jamadani's son Rama, who was acquainted with every weapon and whom none excelled, when addressed for battle on behalf of Amva, was vanquished by Bhishma in combat. Thou tellest me that Bhishma, who was the foremost of all warriors and who resembled Indra himself in the feats he achieved, hath been slain. What can be a greater grief to me than this? Endues with great intelligence, he that was not slain even by the slayer of hostile heroes, that Rama, the son of Jamadani, who defeated in battle crowds of Kshatriyas repeatedly, he hath now been slain by Sikandin. Without doubt, Drupada's son Sikandin, therefore who hath slain in battle that bull of Bharata's race, that hero acquainted with the highest weapons, that brave and accomplished warrior conversant with every weapon, is superior in energy, prowess, and might to the invincible Bhargava endued with the highest energy. In that encounter of arms who were the heroes that followed that slayer of foes? Tell me how the battle was fought between Bhishma and the Pandavas. The army of my son, O Sanjaya, reft of its hero, is like an unprotected woman. Indeed, that army of mine is like a panic-struck herd of kine reft of its herdsman. He in whom resided prowess superior to that of every one, when he was laid low on the field of battle. What was the state of mind of my army? What power is there, O Sanjaya, in our life, when we have caused our father of mighty energy, that foremost of righteous men in the world, to be slain? Like a person desirous of crossing the sea when he beholds the boat sunk in fathomless waters, alas, my sons, I ween, are bitterly weeping from grief on Bhishma's death. My heart, O Sanjaya, is surely made of adamant, for it rendeth not even after hearing the death of Bhishma, that tiger among men, that bull among men in whom were weapons, intelligence, and policy, to an immeasurable extent. How, alas, hath that invincible warrior been slain in battle? Neither in consequence of weapons, nor of courage, nor of ascetic merit, nor of intelligence, nor of firmness, nor of gift, can a man free himself from death. Indeed, time, endued with great energy, is incapable of being transgressed by anything in the world. When thou tellest me, O Sanjaya, that Santanu's son Bhishma is dead, burning with grief on account of my sons, in fact, overwhelmed with great sorrow, I had hoped for relief from Bhishma, the son of Santanu. When he beheld Santanu's son, O Sanjaya, lying on earth like the sun, dropped from the firmament, what else was made by Duryodhana as his refuge? O Sanjaya, reflecting with the aid of my understanding, I do not see what the end will be of the kings belonging to my side and that of the enemy and now mustered in the opposing ranks of battle. Alas, cruel are the duties of the Kshatriya order as laid down by the Rishis, since the Pandavas are desirous of sovereignty by even compassing the death of Santanu's son, and we also are desirous of sovereignty by offering up that hero of high vows as a sacrifice. 87 The sons of Pritha, as also my sons, are all in the observance of Kshatriya duties. They, therefore, incur no sin by doing this. Even a righteous person should do this, O Sanjaya, when direful calamities come. The display of prowess and the exhibition of the utmost might have been laid down among the duties of the Kshatriyas. How, indeed, did the sons of Bandu oppose my father Bhishma, the son of Santanu, that unvanquished hero endued with modesty, while he was engaged in destroying the hostile ranks? How were the troops arrayed, and how did he battle with high-souled foes? How, O Sanjaya, was my father Bhishma slain by the enemy? Duryodhana and Karna and the deceitful Sakuni, the son of Shivala, and Dusasana also, what did they say when Bhishma was slain? Thither where the dice board is constituted by the bodies of men, elephants, and steeds, and where arrows and javelins and large swords and bearded darts from the dice, entering that frightful mansion of destructive battles play. Who were those wretched gamblers, those bulls among men, that gambled, making their very lives the frightful stakes? Who won, who were vanquished, who cast the dice successfully, and who have been slain, besides Bhishma, the son of Santanu? Tell me all, O Sanjaya, for peace cannot be mine, hearing that Mahabharata hath been slain, that father of mine, of terrible deeds, their tournament of battle, viz., Bhishma. Keen anguish has penetrated my heart, born of the thought that all my children would die. Thou makest that grief of mine blaze forth, O Sanjaya, like fire by pouring clarified butter on it. My sons, I ween, are even now grieving, beholding Bhishma slain, Bhishma celebrated in all worlds, and who had taken upon himself a heavy burden. I will listen to all those sorrows arising from Duryodhana's act. Therefore, tell me, O Sanjaya, everything that happened there, everything that happened in the battle, born of the folly of my wicked son. Ill-ordered or well-ordered, tell me everything, O Sanjaya. Whatever was achieved with the aid of energy in the battle by Bhishma's desirous of victory, by that warrior accomplished in arms, tell me all fully and in detail. How, in fact, the battle took place between the armies of the Kurus and the manner in which each happened. Section 15. Sanjaya said, deserving as thou art, this question is, indeed, worthy of thee, O great king. It behoveth thee not, however, to impute this fault to Duryodhana. The man who incurreth evil as the consequence of his own misconduct should not attribute that misconduct to others. O great king, the man that doth every kind of injury to other men deserveth to be slain by all men in consequence of those censurable deeds of his. The Pandavas, unacquainted with the ways of wickedness, had, for a long time, with their friends and counsellors, looking up to thy face, borne the injuries done to them, and forgiven them, dwelling in the woods of steeds and elephants and kings of immeasurable energy, that which hath been seen by the aid of yoga power. Hear, O Lord of earth, and do not set thy heart on sorrow. All this was predestined, O King, having bowed down to thy father, that wise and high Suldati, son of Parasara, through whose grace, through whose boon bestowed on me, I have obtained excellent and celestial apprehension, sight beyond the range of the visual sense, and hearing, O King, from great distance, knowledge of other people's hearts, and also of the past and the future, and knowledge also of the origin of all persons transgressing the ordinances, 89 the delightful power of coursing through the skies, and untouchableness by weapons in battles. Listen to me in detail as I recite the romantic and highly wonderful battle that happened between the Brattas, a battle that makes one's hair stand on end. When the combatants were arrayed according to rule, and when they were addressed for battle, Duryodhana, O King, said these words to Dusasana, O Dusasana, let cars be speedily directed for the protection of Bhishma, and do thou speedily urge all our divisions to advance. That hath now come to me, of which I had been thinking for a series of years, viz., the meeting of the Pandavas and the Kauravas at the head of their respective troops. I do not think that there is any act more important for us in this battle than the protecting of Bhishma. If protected, he will slay the Pandavas, the Somakas, and the Srinjayas. That warrior of pure soul said, I will not slay Sikandin. It is heard that he was a female before. For this reason he should be renounced by me in battle. For this, Bhishma should be particularly protected. Let all my warriors take up their positions, resolved to slay Sikandin. Let also all the troops from the east, the west, the south, and the north, accomplished in every kind of weapon, protect the grandsire. Even the lion of mighty strength, if left unprotected, may be slain by the wolf. Let us not, therefore, cause Bhishma to be slain by Sikandin like the lion slain by the jackal. Yadamanyu protects the left wheel, and Utamura protects the right wheel of Falguni. Protected by those two, Falguni himself protects Sikandin. O Dusasana, act in such a way that Sikandin, who is protected by Falguni and whom Bhishma will renounce, may not slay Ganga's son. Section 16. Sanjaya said, when the night had passed away, loud became the noise made by the kings, all exclaiming, Array! Array! With the blare of conches and the sound of drums that resembled leonine roars, O Bharata, with the neigh of steeds, and the clatter of car wheels, with the noise of obstreperous elephants and the shouts, clapping of armpits, and cries of roaring combatants, the din caused everywhere was very great. The large armies of the Kauravas and the Pandavas, O King, rising at sunrise, completed all their arrangements. Then, when the sun rose, the fierce weapons of attack and defence and the coats of mail of both thy sons and the Pandavas, and the large and splendid armies of both sides, became fully visible. Their elephants and cars, adorned with gold, looked resplendent like clouds mingled with lightning. The ranks of cars, standing in profusion, looked like cities. And thy father, stationed there, shone brilliantly, like the full moon. And the warriors, armed with bows and swords and scimitars and maces, javelins and lances and bright weapons of diverse kinds, took up their positions in their respective ranks. And resplendent standards were seen, set up by thousands, of diverse forms, belonging to both ourselves and the foe, and made of gold and decked with gems and blazing like fire. Those banners in thousands, endued with great effulgence, looked beautiful like heroic combatants cased in mail. Gazed at those standards, longing for battle. 90 And many foremost of men, with eyes large as those of bulls endued with quivers, and with hands cased in leathern fences, stood at the heads of their divisions, with their bright weapons upraised. And Shuvala's son Sakuni, and Salia, Jayadratha, and the two princes of Avanti named Vinda and Danuvinda, and the Kakaya brothers, and Sudakshina the ruler of the Kamvojas, and Srutayuda the ruler of the Kalingas, and King Jayatsana, and Vrihadvala the ruler of the Koslas, and Kritavaman of Satwata's race, these 10 tigers among men, endued with great bravery and possessing red arms that looked like maces, these performers of sacrifices with plentiful gifts to Brahmanas, stood each at the head of an Akshauhini of troops. These and many other kings and princes, mighty warriors conversant with policy, obedient to the commands of Duryodhana, all cased in mail, were seen stationed in their respective divisions. All of them, cased in black deer skins, endued with great strength, accomplished in battle, and cheerfully prepared, for Duryodhana's sake, to ascend to the region of Brahma. 91 stood the commanding 10 efficient Akshauhinis. The 11th great division of the Kauravas, consisting of the Dharishta troops, stood in advance of the whole army. Therein the van of that division was Santanu's son. With his white headgear, white umbrella, and white mail, O monarch, we beheld Bhishma of unfailing prowess look like the risen moon. His standard bearing the device of Upamira of gold, himself stationed on a car made of silver. Both the Kuras and the Pandavas beheld that hero looking like the moon encircled by white clouds. The great bowmen amongst the Saranjayas, headed by Drishthadhyumna, beholding Bhishma, looked like little animals when they would behold a mighty yawning lion. Indeed, all the combatants headed by Drishthadhyumna repeatedly trembled in fear. These, O king, were the 11 splendid divisions of thy army. So also the 7 divisions belonging to the Pandavas were protected by foremost of men. Indeed, the 2 armies facing each other looked like 2 oceans at the end of the Yuga, agitated by fierce makaras, and abounding with huge crocodiles. Never before, O king, did we see or hear of 2 such armies encountering each other like these of the Kauravas. Section 17. Sanjaya said, just as the holy Krishna Dwapayana had said, in that very manner the kings of the earth, mustered together, came to the encounter. On that day on which the battle commenced, Soma approached the region of Baitres. 92 The 7 large planets, as they appeared in the firmament, all looked blazing like fire. 93 The sun, when he rose, seemed to be divided in twain. Besides, that luminary, as it appeared in the firmament, seemed to blaze forth in flames. 94 Carnivorous jackals and crows, expecting dead bodies to feast upon, began to utter fierce cries from all directions that seemed to be ablaze. Every day the old grandsire of the Kuras, and the son of Bharadwaja, raising from bed in the morning, with concentrated mind, said victory to the sons of Pandu, while those chastisers of foes used, at the same time, yet to fight for thy sake according to the pledge they had given. Thy father Devavrata, fully conversant with every duty, summoning all the kings, said these words unto them. Ye Kshatriyas, this broad door is open to you for entering heaven. Go ye through it to the region of Sakra and Brahman. The rishis of olden times have showed you this eternal path. 95 Honor ye yourselves by engaging in battle with attentive minds. Nabhaga, and Yayati, and Mandathri, and Manhusa, and Nriga, were crowned with success and obtained the highest region of bliss by feats like these. To die of disease at home is sin for a Kshatriya. The death he meets with in battle is his eternal duty. Thus addressed, O bull of Bharata's race, by Bhishma, the kings, looking beautiful in their excellent cars, proceeded to the heads of their respective divisions. Only Vikardhana's son Karna, with his friends and relatives, O bull of Bharata's race, laid aside his weapons in battle for the sake of Bhishma. Without Karna, then, thy sons and all the kings on thy side proceeded, making the 10 points of the horizon resound with their leonine roars. And their divisions shone brightly, O king, with white umbrellas, banners, standards, elephants, steeds, cars, and foot soldiers. And the earth was agitated with the sounds of drums and tabors and cymbals, and the clatter of car wheels. And the mighty car warriors, decked with their bracelets and armlets of gold and with their bows, variegated with gold, looked resplendent like hills of fire. And with his large palmyra standard decked with 5 stars, Bhishma, the generalissimo of the Kuru army, 96, looked like the resplendent sun himself. Those mighty bowmen of royal birth, O bull of Bharata's race, that were on thy side, all took up their positions, O king, as Santanu's son ordered. King, saviour of the country of the Govasanas, accompanied by all the monarchs, went out on a princely elephant worthy of royal use and graced with a banner on its back. And as Wataman, of the complexion of the lotus, went out ready for every emergency, stationing himself at the very head of all the divisions, with his standard bearing the device of the lion's tail. And Srutayuda and Chitrasena and Purumetra and Vivansati and Salya and Bharazravas, and that mighty car warrior Vikana, these 7 mighty bowmen on their carts and cased in excellent mail, followed Drona's son behind but in advance of Bhishma. The tall standards of these warriors, made of gold, beautifully set up for adorning their excellent cars, looked highly resplendent. The standard of Drona, the foremost of preceptors, bore the device of a golden altar decked with a water pot and the figure of a bow. The standard of Duryodhana, guiding many hundreds and thousands of divisions, bore the device of an elephant worked in gems. Paurava and the ruler of the Kalingas, and Salya, these Rathas took up their position in Duryodhana's van, on a costly car with his standard bearing the device of a bull, and guiding the very van of his division. The ruler of the Magadhas marched against the foe. 97 That large force of the Easterners, looking like the fleecy clouds of autumn. 98 was, besides, protected by the chief of the Angas, Karna's son Vrishaketu, and Gripa, endued with great energy, stationing himself in the van of his division with his beautiful standard of silver bearing the device of the boar. The famous Jayadratha looked highly resplendent. 100,000 cars, 8,000 elephants, and 60,000 cavalry were under his command. 99 Commanded by the royal chief of the Sindhas, that large division occupying the very van of the army, and abounding with untold cars, elephants, and steeds, looked magnificent. With 60,000 cars and 10,000 elephants, the ruler of the Kalingas, accompanied by Ketumat, went out. His huge elephants, looking like hills, and adorned with yantras, 100 lances, quivers and standards, looked exceedingly beautiful. And the ruler of the Kalingas, with his tall standard effulgent as fire, with his white umbrella, and golden cuirass, and chamaras, wherewith he was fanned, shone brilliantly. And Ketumat also, riding on an elephant with a highly excellent and beautiful hook, was stationed in battle, O king, like the sun in the midst of black clouds. And King Bhagadatta, blazing with energy and riding on that elephant of his, went out like the wielder of the thunder. And the 2 princes of Avanti named Vinda and Danuvinda, who were regarded as equal to Bhagadatta, followed Ketumat, riding on the necks of their elephants. And, O king, arrayed by Drona and the royal son of Santanu, and Drona's son, and Valika, and Gripa, the Kaurava, Vyuha 101, consisting of many divisions of cars, was such that the elephants formed its body, the king's, its head, and the steeds, its wings. With face towards all sides, that fierce Vyuha seemed to smile and ready to spring upon the foe. Section 18. Sanjaya said, soon after, O king, a loud uproar, causing the heart to tremble, was heard, made by the combatants ready for the fight. Indeed, with the sounds of conches and drums, the grunts of elephants, and the clatter of car wheels, the earth seemed to rend in twain. And soon the welkin and the whole earth was filled with the neigh of chargers and the shouts of combatants. O irresistible one, the troops of thy sons and of the Pandavas both trembled when they encountered each other. There, on the field of battle, elephants and cars, decked in gold, looked beautiful like clouds decked with lightning. And standards of diverse forms, O king, belonging to the combatants on thy side, and adorned with golden rings, looked resplendent like fire. And those standards of thy side and theirs resembled, O Bharata, the banners of Indra in his celestial mansions. And the heroic warriors, all accoutred and cased in golden coats of mailing dews with the effulgence of the blazing sun, themselves looked like blazing fire, or the Sunday all the foremost warriors amongst the chorus, O king, with excellent bows and weapons appraised, for striking, with leathern fences on their hands, and with standards, those mighty bowmen, of eyes large as those of bulls, all placed themselves at the heads of their respective divisions. And these amongst thy sons, O king, protected Bhishma from behind, viz. Dasisna, and Dervish Aha, and Durmika, and Dasaha, and Vivansati, and Chitrasana, and that mighty car warrior Vikarna. And amongst them were Satyavrata, and Purumitra, and Jaya, and Parisravas, and Sala. And 20,000 car warriors followed them. The Abhishakas, the Surasnas, the Sivis, and the Vasatis, the Saliyas, the Matsyas, the Amvashtas, the Trigartas, and the Kikayas, the Sauviras, the Kitavas, and the dwellers of the eastern, western, and the northern countries, these 12 brave races were resolved to fight reckless of their lives. And these protected the grandsire with a multitudinous array of cars. And with a division that consisted of 10,000 active elephants, the king of Magadha followed that large car division. They that protected the wheels of the cars and they that protected the elephants numbered full 6 millions. And the foot soldiers that marched in advance of the army, armed with bows, swords, and shields, numbered many hundreds of thousands. And they fought also using their nails and bearded darts. And the 10 and 1 Akshayinis of thy son, O Bharata, looked, O mighty king, like Ganga separated from Yamuna. 102. Section 19. Dhritarashtra said, beholding our 10 and 1 Akshayinis arrayed in order of battle, how did Yudhishthira, the son of Pandu, make his counter with his forces smaller in number? How did Kunti's son, O Sanjaya, form his counter-array against that Bhishma who was acquainted with all kinds of arrays, viz., human, celestial, Gandharva, and Asura? Sanjaya said, seeing the Dhritarashtra divisions arrayed in order of battle, Pandu's son of virtuous soul, King Yudhishthira the Just, addressed Dhananjaya, saying, men are informed from the words of that great Rishi Vrihas party that the few must be made to fight by condensing them, while the many may be extended according to pleasure. In encounters of the few with the many, the array to be formed should be the needle-mouthed one. Our troops compared with the enemies are few. Keeping in view this precept of the great Rishi, array our troops, O son of Pandu. Hearing this, that son of Pandu answered King Yudhishthira the Just, saying, that immovable array known by the name of Vajra, which was designed by the wielder of the thunderbolt, that invincible array is the one that I will make for thee, O best of kings. He who is like the bursting tempest, he who is incapable of being borne in battle by the foe, that Bhima the foremost of smiters, will fight at our head. That foremost of men, conversant with all the appliances of battle, becoming our leader, will fight in the van, crushing the energy of the foe. That foremost of smiters, viz., Bhima, beholding whom all the hostile warriors headed by Duryodhana will retreat in panic like smaller animals beholding the lion, all of us, our fears dispelled, will seek his shelter as if he were a wall, like the celestial seeking the shelter of Indra. The man breathes not in the world who would bear to cast his eyes upon that bull among men, Vrikadara of fierce deeds, when he is angry. Having said this, Dhananjaya of mighty arms did as he said. And Falguni, quickly disposing his troops in battle array, proceeded against the foe. And the mighty army of the Pandavas, beholding the Kuru army move, looked like the full, immovable, and quickly rolling 103 current of Ganga. And Bhimasena, and Drishthadhyumna endued with great energy, and Nakula, and Sahadeva, and King Drishtaketu, became the leaders of that force. And King Virata, surrounded by an Akshauhini of troops and accompanied by his brothers and sons, marched in the rear, protecting them from behind. The two sons of Madri, both endued with great effulgence, became the protectors of Bhima's wheels, while the 5 sons of Draupadi and the son of Subhadra, all endued with great activity, protected Bhima from behind. And that mighty car warrior, Drishthadhyumna, the prince of Panchala, with those bravest of combatants and the foremost of car warriors, viz., the Prabhadrakas, protected those princes from behind. And behind him was Sikandin, who, in his turn, was protected by Arjuna, and who, O bull of Bharata's race, advanced with concentrated attention for the destruction of Bhishma. Behind Arjuna was Ayudhana of mighty strength, and the two princes of Panchala, viz., Yadamanyu and Uttamaujas, became protectors of Arjuna's wheels, along with the Kakaya brothers, and Drishtaketu, and Chekatana of great valor, this Bhimasena, wielding his mace made of the hardest metal, and moving, on the field of battle, with fierce speed, can dry up the very ocean. And there also stay, with their counsellors looking on him, O king, the children 104 of Dhritarashtra. Even this, O monarch, was what Vatsu said, pointing out the mighty Bhimasena to Yudhishthira. 105. And while Partha was saying so, all the troops, O Bharata, worshipped him on the field of battle with gratulatory words. King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, shook up his position in the center of his army, surrounded by huge and furious elephants resembling moving hills. The high-souled Yajnasena, the king of the Panchalas, endued with great prowess, stationed himself behind Virata with an Akshauhini of troops for the sake of the Pandavas. And on the cars of those kings, O monarch, were tall standards bearing diverse devices, decked with excellent ornaments of gold, and endued with the effulgence of the sun and the moon, causing those kings to move and make space for him. That mighty car warrior Drishthadhyumna, accompanied by his brothers and sons, protected Yudhishthira from behind, transcending the huge standards on all the cars on thy side and that of the enemy. Was the one gigantic ape on Arjuna's car. Foot soldiers, by many hundreds of thousands, and armed with swords, spears, and scimitars, proceeded ahead for protecting Bhimasena. And 10,000 elephants with temporal juice trickling down their cheek and mouth, and resembling, on that account, showering clouds, 106 endued with great courage, blazing with golden armor, huge hills, costly, and emitting the fragrance of lotuses, followed the king behind like moving mountains. 107. And the high-souled and invincible Bhimasena, whirling his fierce mace that resembled a pariah 108, seemed to crush the large army of thy son, incapable of being looked at like the sun himself, and scorching as it were the hostile army, like fire. None of the combatants could bear to even look at him from any near point. And this array, fearless and having its face turned towards all sides, called Vajra, having bows for its lightning sign, 109, and extremely fierce, was protected by the wielder of Gandiva. Disposing their troops in this counter-array against thy army, the Pandavas waited for battle. And protected by the Pandavas, that array became invincible in the world of men. And as both The armies stood at dawn of day waiting for sunrise. A wind began to blow with drops of water falling, and although there were no clouds, the roll of thunder was heard. And dry winds began to blow all around, bearing a shower of pointed pebbles along the ground. And thick dust arose, covering the world with darkness. And large meteors began to fall eastwards, O bull of Bharata's race, and striking against the rising sun, broke in fragments with loud noise. When the troops stood arrayed, O bull of Bharata's race, the sun rose divested of splendor, and the earth trembled with a loud sound, and cracked in many places, O chief of the Bharatas, with loud noise. And the roll of thunder, O king, was heard frequently on all sides. So thick was the dust that arose that nothing could be seen. And the tall standards of the combatants, furnished with strings of bells, decked with golden ornaments, garlands of flowers, and rich drapery, graced with banners and resembling the sun in splendor, being suddenly shaken by the wind, gave a loud jingling noise like that of a forest of palmyra trees, when moved by the wind. It was thus that those tigers among men, the sons of Pandu, ever taking delight in battle, stood having disposed their troops in counter-array against the army of thy son, and sucking, as it were, the marrow, O bull of Bharata's race, of our warriors, and casting their eyes on Bhimasena stationed at their head, mace in hand. Section 20. Dhritarashtra said, when the sun rose, O Sanjaya, of my army led by Bhishma and the Pandava army led by Bhima, which first cheerfully approached the other, desirous of fight. To which side were the sun, the moon and the wind hostile, and against whom did the beasts of prey utter inauspicious sounds? Who were those young men, the complexions of whose faces were cheerful? Tell me all these truly and duly. Sanjaya said, both armies, when arrayed, were equally joyful, O king. Both armies looked equally beautiful, assuming the aspect of blossoming woods, and both armies were full of elephants, cars and horses. Both armies were vast and terrible in aspect, and so also, O Bharata, none of them could bear the other. Both of them were arrayed for conquering the very heavens, and both of them consisted of excellent persons. The Kauravas belonging to the Dhritarashtra party stood facing the west, while the Pathas stood facing the east, addressed for fight. The troops of the Kauravas looked like the army of the chief of the Danavas, while that of the Pandavas looked like the army of the Celestials. The wind began to blow from behind the Pandavas, against the face of the Dhritarashtras, and the beasts of prey began to yell against the Dhritarashtras. The elephants belonging to thy sons could not bear the strong odour of the temporal juice emitted by the huge elephants of the Pandavas. And Duryodhana rode on an elephant of the complexion of the lotus, with rent temples, graced with a golden cakshaw on its back, and cased in an armour of steel network. And he was in the very centre of the chorus and was adored by eulogists and bards. And a white umbrella of lunar refulgence was held over his head graced with a golden chain. Temsakuni, the ruler of the Gandhras, followed with mountaineers of Gandhara placed all around. And the venerable Bhishma was at the head of all the troops, with a white umbrella held over his head, armed with bow and sword, with a white headgear, with a white banner, on his car, and with white steeds, yoked thereto, and all together looking like a white mountain. In Bhishma's division were all the sons of Dhritarashtra, and also Sala who was a countryman of the Valakas, and also all those Kshatriyas called Amvistas, and those called Sindhas, and those also that are called Sauviras, and the heroic dwellers of the country of the 5 rivers. And on the golden car unto which were yoked red steeds, the high Suladrona, bow in hand and with never-failing heart, the preceptor of almost all the kings, remained behind all the troops, protecting them like Indra. And Saradwats,